big sky, big potential. In association with Mills and Reeve, this is Eastern Promise. Achieving more together. Welcome, dear friend, to the East of England and to the podcast that celebrates and showcases it all. Stand by to listen to the whole of the Eastern Promise live skills event, for this is Eastern Promise. It's barely a week since Eastern Promise recorded its skills panel event on the 6th floor of Botanic House in Cambridge, home to our sponsors Mills and Reeve. And you can listen to it all now. We'll hear the views of young people on education and training before putting their views to the experts. We'll talk career breaks and pivots and get a panel of policy experts to discuss what we've heard. I'm your host, Mike Rigby, and you're guaranteed a thought-provoking, awe-inspiring and, occasionally, rib-tickling time, recorded in front of a live studio audience on this week's Eastern Promise. On the 21st of November, Eastern Promise convened a live audience on the 6th floor of Botanic House, the home of full-service legal firm Mills and Reeve in Cambridge. Usual discussions around the areas of skills and education and training tend to focus on the voices of adults and what they think young people should be doing. Eastern Promise decided to turn that model on its head. In a break from the norm, we'll be starting with the young people, and then we'll be commenting on what they think, rather than the other way around. And so, you join your handsome and, dare I say, dashing host, as he introduces the event and gets started on the first panel. The views of 4 of our most talented young people who, coincidentally, have been brought together from some of the most deprived and unequal parts of the region.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Sorry, my engineer was waving at me that I needed to actually stand at a lectern, and so you can all hear what I'm saying. But good morning, everyone. I was tempted to do the inverse of what you normally do. Good morning, and start with saying I'll come down to you and where you are. But no, that was really good. That was really good, really positive opener. So yes, welcome to this special Eastern Promise live recording. Bit of an oxymoron, I know, a bit like Healthy Glow and Slow News Day. And it is absolutely wonderful to have so many friends, colleagues from all across the region here. Is anyone in from Suffolk, by the way?
Kind of. I live in Suffolk.
You'll do. And we've got our colleague Anna Douglas here from the London School of Economics, people. Welcome. Thank you. Fiona McGonigal from Anglia Ruskin, everyone. We're just going to roll with it today. It's going to be great. So, yes, skills. Caroline Reeve from Groundworks East is here as well. Right, where was I? Remember the speech. Yes, before I'm just going to, in a second, I'm going to ask Deborah to step up. Most of you know Deborah Dawson from Mills and Reeve. And yes, yeah, we'll not get anywhere if we keep doing that. And you're all worth it, but please. But before you do, I just want to say a few quick thank yous on the record. First, thank you to all the speakers, especially these 4 young people who I've dragged here today with the connivance of their teaching staff. Thank you to Cambridge Consultants who've very kindly donated some funds to help offset the cost of the catering. Thank you to my engineer who cannot be named for legal reasons. And thank you to Mills and Reeve, as always, who've been such a huge support to what I do. Thank you to Deborah. Thank you to Louise Border, all the team here on the 6th floor and in reception. And a particular thank you to Sarah Adams. Thanks to her gentle pressure, this event is actually happening at all. So thank you to you. But without further ado, I shall ask Deborah to just come and say a few words of welcome.
Morning, everyone. Friends, collaborators, students. It's so lovely to have you here today. What a beautiful day and perfect setting on our 6th floor. I just want to say a bit about Mills and Reeve, but before I just better do the housekeeping. There are no fire alarms set. If there are, please do go to the left by the lifts, and there's a stairway going down, and the meeting place is by the memorial just down there. But we're not due any fire alarms, so hopefully, touch wood, it'll all go smoothly. Just a bit about Mills and Reeve. You do know, most of you do know about us. We're full-scale national law firm, top 40 law firm in Europe. We have over 800 lawyers and 1,400 in total, which is business services. So myself is marketing and business development, and that goes to HR and finance. When I say full-service law firm, people think, oh, what's that? That means employment, it means IP, commercial contracts, it means funding, it means M&A work, so that's mergers and acquisitions, so sales and exits. And we also do employment as well. But I just wanted to say welcome. It's an absolute delight for you to be here. And thank you to Mike, who you are a close friend of the firm, Mike, and a loyal supporter for Mills and Reeve, and we're just thrilled to host this event for you. Thank you.
So, if any of you are wondering how the idea for this little shindig came about, it was about a year ago now at the big debate for the Norfolk Chambers of Commerce. And I was standing in the coffee queue, which is where you usually find me at most events, and the two people immediately behind me were having a discussion, sharing a gripe that you'll have heard this could be probably boiled down quite easily to kids today. And do you know what, folks? I had a revelation. A revelation that if you were to go back thousands of years to a tavern, perhaps, in Camalodunum, East of England pop quiz, what's the modern name for Camalodunum? Oh, come on. Colchester. Colchester. Boudica will not be pleased. Her spirit won't rest now, you know. Anyway, so, lamenting the poor quality of legionaries these days. And then I thought, is this all this kids today gripe, a way we kind of deal with ageing in ourselves aging in the workplace, and how we cope with relating to a generation that is quite literally meant to replace us? And if that is true, and I'm not saying it is, but if that is true, that's quite a negative way for us to cope. So that's why today we often hear about what the economy needs from our young people. So I thought we'd turn the tables a bit and hear what our young people want from the economy. And we're going to get these 4 brilliant young people in a second to just give us their take on what's going on, where they want to head, and no judgment. And then we're going to get a panel together and put everything that they've said to the grown-ups. And it's the young people who are going to have the last word. After the break, we're then going to look at career breaks, career pivots, those that have been chosen and those that have not. And finally, we're going to round everything off with an expert panel telling us their reflections on everything they've heard today and where they think that leaves us in terms of policy. We've got the skills white papers just come out. I had a lovely read of that on the train, and where that leaves us and what we can do to take some positive changes forward locally and regionally, and to lobby nationally. Does that sound like fun? Yes. Thank God for that. Anyway, right, I shall get my little clickety-click thing and timer and have a sip of water because I'm already parched. And right, you all right? Yeah. Ignore them. They're just here for ambience. Okay. So, right, starting with yourself. Could you tell us? I know it says it on your top, but not everyone will see that. Your name and your year and where you're studying, where you go to school.
I'm Lee Rawlings. I'm in Year 10 and I currently study at North Cambridge Academy.
They love Cambridge Academy in the room.
Dorothy Oram, Year 10, North Cambridge Academy.
I'm May Munro. I'm in Year 13 and I'm at East Norfolk Sixth Form College.
I'm Drew. I'm in Year 13 and I study at East Norfolk Academy.
So, starting with you again, Lee, just you tell us what your sort of hopes and plans are going forward for your education, as such as you have them.
Well, I can understand why a lot of people will feel pressured in this area of Cambridge where we're really known for STEM to do it, but that doesn't affect me. I know what I want to do and I'm going to persevere in it.
Well, as a former parliamentary researcher, I feel like I should both A, encourage you to do that, and B, warn you very seriously against doing that. But that's wonderful. And what I think is really interesting is that there's a lot of focus on STEM. Rightly so. I mean, where's Dr. Simon Fox? He's there waving his arm at the back, and he's the co-founder of the Youth STEM Awards with an extra M for medicine, if you're wondering, which is basically the science equivalent of the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. But I've been round theatres in this job and looked at all the roles there are there. I'm not saying you want to work in the theatre, but and television. I was talking to a reporter yesterday. There are lots of opportunities there as well. So, great, thank you. Come on to you, Dorothy. Do you prefer Dorothy or Dottie?
I don't mind either.
So, Dottie.
I currently do history, French, hospitality and catering, and dance. I'd really like to continue history and French because I really like languages and I really like sort of the opportunity they give you and like the fact that you can travel and sort of see everywhere.
So, what do you think about French history?
Maybe. I think sort of all history is really interesting.
It's a lot of decapitation.
Yeah.
It's quite. If you're into gory stuff, that's quite the way to go.
I'd like to be a dentist, so I'd like to go to university and study to be a dentist.
Fantastic. We've by the way, for those in the room who knows Wellow by the station, Felix. So we've encouraged them to pop in and say hello to Felix, and we've sorted that out as well. So they can pop in and say hi to Felix and have a look round. You won't believe you're in a dental hygienist when you're in there. You think, I'm going to get my hair done. So Drew, we talked about this earlier.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
So just fill people in the room what you want to go on and study.
So mainly I want to study computing. I'm also studying maths and engineering, but my main subject right now is computing.
Right, fantastic. So, Lee, the debate around what people should go on and study, I know it's a bit early for you, but do you feel any particular pressure to follow a particular course? Are you sort of do you know anything about the wider debates? Are you even interested in the wider debates that are going on around what you want to do? Or are you just following, you know where you want to go and you're following?
Well, I can understand why a lot of people will feel pressured in this area of Cambridge where we're really known for STEM to do it, but that doesn't affect me. I know what I want to do and I'm going to persevere in it.
You see, that's brilliant, and I'd like to just reflect to the room that one of the really interesting things when I was starting to prep for this event is how unaffected young people are by our chuntering about their skills, which I personally think is wonderful. Oops, easy, Tiger. So, same question to you, Dottie. I mean, and I'll just sort of broaden it out a bit for you. You're obviously this city. Everyone knows about this city. The government has its eyes focused on this city and the corridor to Cambridge. And obviously, it's all. How much does this city sort of weigh in on your choices? It's like the first thing I do, I have to get away from Cambridge, or I'm really keen to look at Cambridge, or is it somewhere floating in the middle, like you might like to stay around home, or I mean, you might, how do you feel about this place?
I think because it's so academic and because there's so many opportunities given in this city, I think. I don't think I'd look at Cambridge for like a university, but I'd love to go to somewhere that's like sort of similar in level of academic. I think that's one of the things that has actually influenced me by living in Cambridge is sort of the level of prestige and like how like sort of interesting it is to live around a university like Cambridge.
Right. And May, I mean, you talked about, do you have any idea where you'd like to go and study dentistry? Because obviously, Cambridge is obviously in a very specific location, and we all know about where Great Yarmouth is, and we all know the issues facing Great Yarmouth. But same question to you, how much does that weigh on your mind, and the relative isolation versus where you want to go and study?
Yeah, that's something that's like really like made an impact on where I want to go. Like, because there isn't any dental schools close by really to where I live. Like, they haven't opened one in the UEA, which is obviously our closest university. So I've applied to Manchester, Birmingham, places like that. I'm open to going anywhere really, but yeah, I do think if there was more close by, I'd rather stay local.
Right, because I know one of the interesting things about the UEA will kill me for saying this. The interesting thing about the University of Suffolk is, and I don't know if you can get a train direct from Yarmouth to Ipswich, but they've approached this quite incrementally in that they develop a small bit of dentistry and then they say, well, we've got this, we need more, and then they get that little bit extra. We've got this, we need more. We've got this, we need a little bit more, rather than sort of saying we need a whole dental school and we need it now. So I've found that approach really interesting. So there is that in Ipswich if you're interested. I don't know. But Drew, how about you? Did you sort of same sort of question? We all know Gorleston, Great Yarmouth. I don't know where you're specifically where you live, but I know that East Norfolk Sixth Form goes out this way to give its. We'll talk about this with Simon. So many opportunities to go all over the world and do all sorts of crazy, wonderful things. What do you? How do you see your future developing, sort of post East Norfolk Sixth Form?
Well, there's definitely a lot of options open to me, which is, I'm quite grateful for that, and that is mainly due to the college. But yeah, I'm mainly looking right now at continuing education past the college, possibly towards university, or that could be an apprenticeship. I was quite interested to hear from Dottie, as you said earlier, that you didn't feel like using the Cambridge education system, even though it was quite local to you, right?
Yeah, I think Cambridge is quite a small city, so once you've lived in it, you sort of know where everything is. I think going to university would sort of change my view on it. Okay,
because that's quite interesting, because especially in the area near the coast, there's very limited universities. We have 2 within an hour or 2, and that kind of limits your options, I would say. So it's quite interesting, actually.
The thought that's running through my head is, I bet Fiona's going to want to have a chat with you later on behalf of Anglia Ruskin. But that's really interesting, and thank you for picking up on that, because I suppose, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you seeing it from the point of view is how can you possibly, wow, you're looking at Cambridge thinking, whereas, our choices seem a lot fewer?
Yeah, I would say I have fewer options than someone who lived more mainland. So, yeah, I would say I was quite surprised to hear that. I feel like if I lived more mainland, I would aim for the higher aspirations.
And you mentioned it's a small city. It is a small city. In many ways, it is smaller than Norwich. But to walk across Norwich and to walk across Cambridge are 2 very different experiences. Norwich, it's in the centre. It's incredibly fast. You can get most of where you want to go really quickly. Whereas with Cambridge, it must just be my level of fitness, because I get knackered. But that's that. So, right, we started a little late, so I'm going to just pick up the pace a bit here. And thank you very much. You've all been absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad we got you up here to listen, because you've had some really interesting thoughts. We will come back to you all. Can I invite you to put your microphones back on the stand, return to the seats, and can I ask you, please, aren't they wonderful? Come on. Right, if I can have my next panel up, please, which is Anne, Kevin, Andy and Simon. Right. Oh, sorry. Right. Well then, folks. Well, first of all, I'm going to whisk along the panel, ask you to introduce yourself, and then we're going to sort of come back along and ask you what your take on all this is. So, for those of you who do not know,
I'm Andy Daly. I'm an executive principal in Meridian Trust. So that's a trust of 35 schools, primary, secondary and special, in the eastern region, basically on the A1, A14 corridor. And one of the schools that I work with is North Cambridge Academy, which you just heard from Dottie and Lee.
We did indeed. And those of you, I think quite a lot of you in this room, I feel, enjoy it. It's fine. You can clap if you like. But I think that most of you in this room will have been at the Innovate Cambridge Summit, and you'll have seen the film they made at North Cambridge Academy about what innovation means to the students there, which was good. I feel you need no introduction, but please press on regardless.
Hi, I'm Anne Daly.
Well, you're right.
Anne Daly. I'm Chief Executive and co-founder of Form the Future, and we are a not-for-profit social enterprise that helps young people as they move through education into employment, and we provide employers with access to their future talent.
Fantastic. This gentleman here.
Yeah, I'm wearing two hats today. I'm Kevin Keable, Chair of the East of England Energy Group. So we work with 250 member companies and work with wind, gas, nuclear, etc., trying to promote the industry and get people into work there. But I'm also a candidate for Mayor for Norfolk and Suffolk.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah, new one. That's a new hat.
Just to stress, if anyone's watching, it's the former thing that I'm very glad Kevin's here, but it's the former thing I'm talking to Kevin about. I'm sure we'll talk about the other stuff another time, but Kevin knows the drill. And at the end,
so I'm Dr. Simon Fox. I'm Deputy Principal at East Norfolk Sixth Form, and we're based in Gorleston, as you've heard. We're the largest A-level provider in Norfolk. We're the largest STEM provider in Norfolk, and we are completely devoted to our young people. So it's great to have them here today, and thank you to Mike for making sure that they sat at the heart of this first panel. I think that's really important. And I'm not a candidate for mayor.
You'd be a good one.
it's only a matter of time. That's fantastic. So I'm going to start with Anne, actually. I've actually managed to open the document that's got my questions in. Anne, you're very familiar with this sort of event, as I'm sure all our panellists, but especially you. Just what's your hot take?
Yeah, well, I'm really pleased, Mike, that we're having this conversation. Our organization exists to bridge the gap between education and employment and to bring the worlds together, because none of us is going to solve these issues on our own. I thought it was really interesting that you started with the whole kids today sort of complaint, because actually that was one of the things that drove me to set up Form the Future in the first place. That sense of, on the one hand, I had children in local schools, and I wasn't really sure they were learning about this incredible Cambridge ecosystem that we were sitting at the heart of, whether the education they were getting was really preparing them for the jobs of the future, and whether we were taking advantage of all the resources in our community to really enrich their education, build their ambition, and give them that sense of line of sight to the workplace. So I thought, well, on the one hand, we need to do that for the kids, for their opportunities, for their futures. On the other hand, I heard employers saying, young people aren't work ready, we can't find the talent we need, and it just felt like there was just two worlds completely divided. If we could operate as a bridge and join the dots, connect the worlds together, we could probably do great things for everybody. And really, that was what started us on that mission. We had some great support from Andy, who's sitting next to me here, when it was part of Cambridge Area 14 to 19 partnership. That's what got us going. And so essentially what we're talking about today is how do we make sure that everyone can access the opportunities and that we can generate the skills for opportunities in our region. It really starts when you're at school, and it starts by getting the community together in the way that we're doing it today.
It's fantastic. What I love about, all the students were fantastic. I was particularly pleased with what Lee said. It was like, I know where I'm going, and all this talk about STEM, important though it is, that's not going to crowd me out, because we don't know, none of us know, we might pretend we do, but we don't, what the businesses of the future are going to look like. I don't know if anybody in the room knows Benjamin Hartley, God, this is name dropping, look out, of Idea Space. He was my first interview in Cambridge about 3 or 4 years ago now, and we sat around a table and he said, how did you come to be in charge of this innovation hub? He's sort of like, a version of like Ros Bird or what have you. And he said, I did music production at university. All right. And when people say something you didn't expect, he then said, but then I gave it all up to be a helicopter pilot in the Navy. And then I did the 5-minute geek out, what'd you fly? And then he formed a company offering trained military extras for movies. and now he's running an innovation hub in Cambridge. So people, the squiggly career is real, people. But Kevin, sort of same question to you. What's your hot take, especially in regard to the skills beat? Because the east of England and Norfolk and Suffolk coast especially are so intertwined with renewable oil, gas, energy, etc., and nuclear now as well with Sizewell C, that the level of opportunities there are huge.
Yeah, and I think my first statement would be adults today, because I think we're letting down the younger generation, and a lot of the things that Anne just talked about. You know, there's this mismatch of young people coming out of colleges and universities apparently not ready to go into work, but companies cannot find the right people to go into the work. So I think we are letting them down. And I keep saying to people, you know, if in 20 years we look back with all of this, in the energy sector particularly, with all of this money being spent around our coastline, and we're letting down the younger generation, we're letting down the older generation as well, to be honest, because we're not upskilling for all of this work that's there. So we really need to be the adults in the room and start aligning ourselves and making sure that, for example, and one of the things we're trying to do now is to get industry to talk really closely with colleges, for example, and tell colleges and universities what they need in students so that they can take them straight away and put them to work. And also for industry to offer work experience, because I heard on your podcast yesterday about Haverhill, somebody was talking about we can't find the skilled people. Well, fair enough, you can't find the skilled people, but you also need to make some of the skilled people. It's really important that industry trains people and doesn't just rely on colleges and universities to turn out work-ready people. There's a balance there, and we've got to work together to create skilled people, use colleges and universities as a resource. So there's a lot of discussions to be had, and I completely agree with what Anne has just said, in that, you know, it's joining those things up. So adults today would be my statement.
Absolutely. Do you agree with that? I nearly said kids. To our young people, do you agree with that? Adults today, eh?
Yeah.
I think the adults agree with it. You're all dead silent. We're probably quite wise. Now, to our educators, I'm going to go to Simon and then Andy. And it's the same question, but A, what do you make of it? But I want to start with, how proud must you be right now?
Always proud, always proud. But you know, and this is actually part of what we try to do for our students. So if any of us in the senior leadership team or any faculty leaders get invited to events, we say, well, how many students can we bring? Because this is part of that skills prep and that soft skills piece of, well, this is how you go out and you network and you connect and you talk to interesting people and you find out about what is out there. That's quite a big jump if you've never done that before. So yes, incredibly proud, and you know, I think particularly that they'll go back and they'll take those skills and then use those in college and then use those in the careers that they go into. So yes, that bit definitely.
But just to sort of build out from that, I mean, I don't know if you know this, because I see it on LinkedIn quite a lot. You know, it sounds like Dr. Seuss. Oh, the places you'll go if you're at East Norfolk Sixth Form. I mean, I don't know, Andy, you can tell me in a minute if you do something similar, but tell me some of the places your students get to go with East Norfolk Sixth Form College, Simon, if you please.
Well, funnily enough, Drew's been to South Korea and May's been to Cambodia last Easter. We work really hard with the Turing scheme to help fund that. So obviously, you know, Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft, when we talk about deprivation, you know, some of our wards are in the bottom 1% in the country for income deprivation, but also education and skills. So everything we do has got to be accessible for young people, but we don't think that should mean they can't do everything that everyone else does. So those trips, which were 2.5-week work placement trips, they ended up being £500 or £600. And if you're on a bursary, even less than that. So although we take them everywhere, the key is we make it accessible for young people who wouldn't normally get those opportunities. The reason Dr. Catherine Richards, who's the principal, isn't here today is because she is working with our next group of young people who next Easter are off to Bali, Vietnam, India, Cambodia again, and South Korea again. And we also go more locally. I'm taking a trip to CERN next summer. This is more local. Berlin, Paris, Rome. They're in Seville at the moment. We go to London, Cambridge. We think that the whole point of us, our job, our duty, is to say, this is the world. like play in it. It's yours, but we need to help scaffold you to go and do those things to start with. And I mean, May, I know one of the things she wants to do is go and live in Thailand or Cambodia, and some of that came from that experience.
Definitely, yeah. It's like seeing all the, like, I really love it, yeah. Definitely since I've been there.
What I liked, and I'm sure it'll happen in a second as well, is the people who don't know East Norfolk Sixth Form, like I know East Norfolk Sixth Form, and I know Anne knows East Norfolk and Kevin knows it, is the kind of awe and disbelief of all the opportunities that you give your students, and I just think that is wonderful.
Just one additional one that's coming up to tie into Kevin's point. So RWE, who lots of you will be aware of, huge potential employer in the east of England with the 2 new wind farms particularly. So we have a project working with them along this line of we need to get key employers into the college. So there'll be 10 students working with them from January on a project to learn more about RWE, what they do, the roles within that organisation, to learn a bit of conversational German, and then to go over to the HQ in Essen and see what roles are happening. You know, there's a trading floor in their HQ, which we didn't know about. But in terms of the opportunities for young people, it's those moments where you begin to connect in really meaningful ways. And careers fairs are great, like they're brilliant and they're a great intro. But those really functional things, you know, EAGER have an amazing programme, education in our area, that drives internships, it drives opportunities, it drives activities that young people do where they work with employers. We had the EAGER breakfast yesterday at the college.
Yes. And Speakers Club?
Yeah, Speakers Club. And it's those real lived opportunities of connecting with employers and key sector players that have a huge impact on the opportunities for our young people.
So Andy, I'll come to you. You've got a far wider brief. Anne smiled.
Yeah, we go to Abu Dhabi in February, like that. Well, that's not quite Cambodia.
No, but you obviously you're not one institution. You oversee many. So first, reflect on how brilliant your students are and how proud you are of them, and I'm sure the whole trust is, and as well, just what you take on what they said and what you're doing as a trust to give them those opportunities. Yeah,
I'm incredibly proud of our students. I think what was really interesting was hearing the breadth of what Dottie and Lee are doing. You know, that actually we're mixing things like history and politics with dance and performing arts, and I think those things are so crucial for developing those wider skills. As a trust, we have a pledges programme which is about participation, leadership, excellence, diversity, giving, environment and service. So those things are experiences that we look for all of our students to have as they go through, and some of that will be through trips and visits, but some of it will be what you're doing and contributing in your local community. And we have a really diverse range of schools within the trust. So North Cambridge, although obviously it is in the city of Cambridge, it is in one of the again bottom 1% in terms of the 2 of the wards that are part of our catchment. And so what's really important when we have those experiences is just looking at creating cultural capital as well. As we were walking in, we were talking about how when you walk around the city of Cambridge, it's like, oh, that's that apple tree that Isaac Newton's the apple fell from, or that's where Pepys's diaries are, or you're kind of surrounded by it. And so it's about using the opportunities to enrich and extend your learning and develop that cultural capital so that you get access to a wider range of things later. What I'm incredibly proud of with North Cambridge particularly is our head, Jane. She's a linguist, developed some fantastic connections with schools across Europe, but she's also done a fantastic job in making sure that our engagement with the sectors in this area are really meaningful and longitudinal, because you can do lots of stuff that's one-off and it's great and it might be a nice day, but actually there are now, where I work with groups like Costello Medical is from year 7 right the way through to year 11, so it involves a range of things like talks, work experience, creating these touch points throughout so that those horizons are broadened and you get to experience things that you might never have even thought of. And that's the huge privilege of being a teacher, is meeting young people who are going to be fantastic at something they haven't even tried yet.
That's brilliant. And I wanted to sort of unpack some more. I mean, you said about it there, and one of the things I found when I was first trying to put this event together is that people like Roku on the Science Park, who I don't know if any of you got a Roku TV at home, they sort of said, well, we'd love to help, but we really, at that point we were talking about East Norfolk, we love to help, but we only really focus on local students. And I just wanted you to unpack for me, if you would, or reflect on how this city sort of, it's a wonderful place and I love coming here. It's difficult, I suppose, because you want to not close off opportunity, but there is a whole world beyond Cambridge. And so how do you balance that in your students? Because we heard sort of, Dottie saying, well, maybe it's not Cambridge for me.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely right. I think it's really interesting. I was really interested to hear, Drew, like my own son's in first year at Norwich, and it's interesting the pressures that I think young people are feeling. If I think back to my own experience going to university, it was like I went to Plymouth from London. It's like as far away possibly as you could get. So actually, but when my son was looking, he was very much, the whole debt thing was really in his mind, and he kind of, Sheffield was up there because he'd worked out there it was cheaper on a night out there. So actually those pressures and kind of what plays into and understanding really what people are looking for and what they want to experience, I think is important. And I think actually, like Dottie also is really interested to travel and wanting to get out and experience new places, and I think that's absolutely right. I think I've got family who live in Australia, and there you have much more of a culture of which Drew I think sort of referred to as you go to university and live at home. Whereas I think in our country, historically, the culture has been you go away and then you have that whole living away experience as well. And that, I think that's potentially shifting as well.
That's sad, because I'm admittedly, I'm of an age still where we used to queue up in the common room to get our grant checks from the county council. Some people are nodding in the audience, similar vintage. In fact, Anna, I think we were at the same university at the same time, we just never met. So, yeah, it seems like a very different world, because the university, the main thing I got out of university is I learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's one, but I learned mainly to stand on my own 2 feet as a grown-up and relate to the world around me and, get out there. I learned to dance badly as well, because I'd never really done that before, but that's another story. It's really interesting you pick up what Drew said. It was like, when he said it, forgive me if I'm wrong, Drew, but it's like, what? You're not considering going to Cambridge? Are you insane? It's like very sort of disbelief that with that option on offer you wouldn't, so close at hand you wouldn't take it. But I suppose it's a very tricky thing to balance, and one of the things I've learned about Cambridge recently is that anyone will know this from the Innovate Cambridge Summit, the extent to which sort of the institutions here want to put their arm around this city and say, we see the inequality and we want to do something about it. But you've got that very tricky tightrope to walk and say, okay, your postcode is not your potential, there's hope, there's opportunity, and I'm kind of repeating the last question, I know, but I just want to sort of reflect a bit more on that and then maybe bring Anne in a second. But I think
that is a huge challenge for us as a school. Obviously, within the city, there's a massive inequity between the different schools that exist in the city. Like North Cambridge Academy is 50% free school meals, and next nearest school is 18%. So there's a huge difference in terms of the equity in the school settings. We've been really fortunate with our Chair of Academy Council, Alison, who's done an incredible amount of work in helping to, because you're exactly right, like people are banging on our door all the time, but what we need is meaningful long-term engagement, and Alison's been really good at funneling that engagement to make sure that actually we're connected with the right people and that those people can commit to making a genuine long-term relationship that is going to meaningfully impact, the community. And again, the one-off things are fantastic, and we do those as well. But actually, that longer-term engagement and commitment is what a school like North Cambridge really needs to make sure that those opportunities for young people are really broadened.
I can see Kevin thinking very deeply about what you just said. But Anne, I want to bring you in because I had a very genial disagreement with a local government officer. And I always think you have to view their professional opinion through the prism of, I want to do what's best for this place. This place is my focus. No other place, lovely as though they may be, but this place is my focus. With what I took from you at last Cambridge Wide Open Week, which was the talk you gave in the mill in Hawkston, was very much there's opportunity for everyone if you're willing to seize it, and that's kind of been one of my North Stars in planning this. So I just want you to basically unpack, don't look so frightened, unpack that sort of opportunity for all, but and reflecting on what Andy's just said, and Simon as well.
Sure, Mike. If I can remember what I said last time you heard me speak about this. I think that's right. I mean, there is opportunity for everybody in this city. Actually, we have a partner in Marshall Aerospace who Christopher Walkinshaw always says, every job you could ever want to have is here in this city of Cambridge. And I can think of a few exceptions, but actually he's right broadly. There is something for everyone. And going back to that point about, is it STEM or is it not STEM? If you look at our big STEM companies, and one of the biggest is just down the road from here, AstraZeneca, global HQ for a pharmaceutical company. I remember being told when they first moved to Cambridge that out of their 45,000 global workers, 9,000 were scientists and the rest were salespeople. And whilst that may not be strictly speaking true, broadly the point I want you to hear is that there are a whole range of jobs within AstraZeneca. And whether it's about making the medicines or selling the medicines or hiring the people or looking after the building, serving the coffees, there's something for everyone in STEM companies here in Cambridge. Now, that's not to say everyone has to do that, but I want everyone to feel that doors are open to them, that there is no door closed. Whether you're attending a school like NCA with 50% on free school meals, or even, frankly, as you say, your next nearest one with 18%, there's still a lot of people who don't feel that the doors are open to them here in Cambridge, and we have to keep working hard to open those doors, to let them walk through them, to make them feel welcome. I'm part of a new initiative with the City Council called Included, and it's really about how do we make everyone who's growing up in this city see the opportunities on their doorstep and believe that they're open to them. I will just say I absolutely love what we've just heard from Simon about the opportunities for the students who are growing up on in a coastal city, where they got 180 degrees of sea next to them. So actually, they have to work harder to really cultivate those opportunities. And wow, the places you go, that is really inspiring. We just need to keep realizing that actually, one of Andy's colleagues, Martin Campbell, once described it to me as this. He said, we want to give our young people God, now I've forgotten it.
You're talking about the keys in the pocket.
Well, it's not that one, actually. He actually said, he said what Form the Future was doing for the students at NCA was to give them its connection with other. He talked about the other, just making them, and I haven't got it verbatim, but essentially we are introducing them to people they would never have met through their families, they hadn't met through their schools, and actually realize that other is good. Different is good. It is nothing to be afraid of. I think we need to keep that mindset now. We're becoming quite fearful of other, right? And there's a real move to feel that things that are unfamiliar or foreign or different from what we're used to is something to be afraid of. It's not. It's something to embrace, put our arms around, and get curious about what it can offer us.
Andy, you look like poised. You want to come back on something?
Yeah, I think sort of one of the other things we talk about as a trust is that, Anne talked about opening doors. Like, the key thing is lots of people don't even know where those doors are. And our job in education is we talk about putting keys in a pocket so that, people have qualifications that when they get to that door, when they find it, they can open it. But then the other thing that's super important is the backpack of experiences they have. I mean, it sounds like the backpack at East Norfolk is amazing, but they have a backpack of experiences that once they walk through it, and that's that connection to other, that's the bit about the pledges, that actually once you get in there, you've got the confidence and the skills to then actually make a real difference in that business, community, wherever it is you end up being.
I think in fairness to you both, I mean, yes, that's a really impressive set of experiences they get from East Norfolk, but as Anne said, it's the amount of opportunities on the doorstep, there's a bit of perhaps a disparity. But what I want to come to Kevin and Simon just quickly to finish is, Kevin, there's an awful amount of opportunities in the renewable sector, and I often go to Lowestoft, which is just up the coast from East Norfolk, to see what a difference the renewables sector has made to that town. The buildings are clean, the streets are clean, there's more ships going into the ports, more ships means more crews means more people on the shoreline looking after the crews. That means when they go out into the town, they've got places to go to lunch, to buy coffee, etc., etc. And then, you know, the circle goes on. And I read in a report that I think Dan sent me, Dan Thorpe from Cambridge Ahead, about how the Treasury are of the view that, I think, and it was Owen's boss, the Treasury that is of the view that to invest in one place means another loses. I don't think that's true at all. But just I want you to reflect on the opportunities that are there on the coast and sort of throughout the industry, and how you're going about making those connections that we're talking about here, and the keys in the pocket.
Certainly. So, you know, I'm really lucky. I'm of a generation when there were huge opportunities in Great Yarmouth, and you know, so I did an apprenticeship in a shipyard. It took me all over the world, which was amazing. And I would recommend living in Thailand, but only for a year. That's enough. It's fantastic. But seriously, there have been lots of opportunities. I'm going to say there's not enough at the moment, Mike. I am trying really hard. We are trying really hard to create more. Unfortunately, with the wind farms, for example, a lot of that kit is built overseas, and I'm trying to get government to do more to re-industrialise Norfolk and Suffolk so we can build more of this stuff here. We are in danger of just being service and maintenance people. So there are opportunities, and certainly in the marine sector, they're huge. The gas industry, and I know that's a dirty word because it's fossil fuels, and some young people in particular don't like it, but the gas industry at the moment employs more people in Norfolk and Suffolk, or certainly around Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft, than the wind industry. The gas industry is still quite big. We've got the chance to create hydrogen and do some carbon capture at Bacton, which could again create a whole plethora of new jobs. And then, as you mentioned, the Sizewell C. What we need to do is to make sure that government doesn't think that they've just given us these projects and therefore the opportunities are there. We've got to work hard to make sure those opportunities are there for our young people, so we've got to give them the right skills so they can, with their set of keys, go to Sizewell and open some doors, go to the wind industry and open some doors, go to Bacton and open some doors. So it's incumbent upon us and the industry to help to get these people ready to go and take on those opportunities. So they are there. I just don't feel there's enough at the moment, and we are trying to create more opportunity.
I have a vision in my mind, and I'm going to put this to the final panel later on, if I remember, that I think we need to create that powerful story that we can put in front of politicians, having had some experience of putting things in front of politicians. That powerful, simple story that's very quick to get across, far quicker than a PowerPoint. You know, visualising, look at what we could do, look at the potential that's here. But I'm going to come for the final word for this panel for Simon, and then we're just going to risk around the students. I nearly said kids again, naughty boy. Really quickly, just to get their take on what you've said. Simon.
I should also say we do a lot closer to home and we do.
It's okay, Simon. We're all really impressed. You don't have to apologise.
Those are some of the lovely ones, and I think that's kind of the critical bit here, and it's something that maybe sits centrally to what we should be thinking about, which is. One of the areas in which, so if you haven't looked at the new IMD data for 2025, it is fascinating. So the indices of multiple deprivation, the new data download is there for 2025. It's the first update in 6 years. It reflects the deprivation of an area by 7 factors. Those factors all have slightly different weighting. One of the areas that particularly our area is poor for, particularly Great Yarmouth as a district, is education and skills. So it's one of the areas in the country with the lowest number of level 4 qualified and above people, full stop. We are of the impression and the sense that is partly because we are doing such a good job of inspiring young people in our local area to go out and do, and not always brilliant at bringing them back. And I think that's the critical thing, whether it's Cambridge or Yarmouth or Gorleston or Lowestoft. actually young people need to go out and see the world. Like if you don't, then you get the other thing happening, you get the them and us. But what we then need to do is create a better framework, a better kind of return pipeline to bring them back into the areas that really need their energy, their passion, their enthusiasm, to make a difference in the place they came from, and to give back into that community to drive it. So that yes, education goes up, but so does everything else. Kind of economic prosperity, cultural capital, social capital, all of those things happen because those inspired young people come back to where they came from, and then they drive that improvement for everybody. So I think all of the great things we're doing, it's not so much about keeping them or sending them, it's about them ending up in the place making the difference they need to make the difference.
That is a really positive note on which to end. So can I ask you just to have a quick ripple? You're all looking very thoughtful, I love it. Quick ripple for the panel here, and express your appreciation for that fantastic session. Just keep your seats for a minute, keep your seats. So, now, through the magic of a microphone, can you hear me? Have I pushed it? It's purple, Jeffrey, should it be purple? I'll switch. We'll go with this one. Hello. Oh, it doesn't matter, my mouth's big enough. Right, just hold it for now. So, we'll start with you, Drew, and we'll go along the line. Awesome. I know, isn't it? What do you make of it?
It was very interesting. There was a lot of interesting points.
Yes.
Yes. Especially considering Suffolk, because I live in Lowestoft, and I would say growing up in Lowestoft, you're mainly driven toward apprenticeships, because there isn't much to do with a higher education in Lowestoft. There's maybe a few accountants firms or something, but mainly it's all offshore apprenticeships. So if I was to go into some book-heavy subject, less practical, I couldn't really, like you said, the return to Lowestoft, I couldn't really do anything. I would have to either move away or not use that. So it is quite a problematic thing, and I think that needs to be developed for sure.
Yeah, the East of England does, though, have one of the, I think, the highest rate. I've seen data. The data experts will correct me if I'm wrong. That it's the highest rate of people who come back after they've been away, education, maybe the first job. They do eventually come back and set up business here, which is wonderful. But just quickly, am I right about Lowestoft? Has it changed as the renewable energy sectors, or am I just seeing it through rose-tinted glasses? Because everywhere's wonderful to me.
So just recently there was I forget the name of the bridge, but there was a new bridge built in Lowestoft. The Gull Bridge? Yeah, a huge bridge, big project. I think it took about 6 months to make. So that shows signs of development in the area. And I doubt somewhere that had less of a industry for that kind of development could achieve such a thing. Especially with our port, it makes a lot of sense to improve that area. And talking about Sizewell, I have family members who have worked at Sizewell, and that is always an open pathway to them. Right. Even if they leave that sector of work, they could easily go back to it.
Right, fantastic, thank you. Thank you, pass that along. My gob's far too big for this. Don't panic, it's all right. Shay, we talked beforehand on a video call, and you were incredible. You floored me by saying you wanted to go to study in London. But just what did you make of that?
I thought it was really good about how you're talking about the opportunities to go somewhere, because like you said about the Speakers Club, I actually attend that because speaking publicly is something that a lot of young people actually struggle with, and especially teenagers. Everyone is so worried about their appearances and stuff like that. So Speakers Club is a really good way to just get rid of the nerves and have that place where you're all in the same boat in a way. Yeah. And you can just increase your confidence.
Yeah. Fantastic. You pass it to Ash.
That was a very good speech, by the way.
Yes.
Was it? You were very good. Yeah.
Well, I'd also add, who here is familiar with Sync the City in Norwich? There's nods, there's hands, fantastic. It's a hackathon, 54, and I've seen students from East Norfolk a couple of years ago now who had to be basically dragged onto the stage to pitch. By the end of the hackathon, yes, indeed. Sorry, they were actually leading the pitch. and they were the best part of the pitch. So, you know, the opportunities for transformation in public speaking are fantastic. Sorry, Ash, what did you think?
So first, I guess I'm really grateful and thankful for all of the opportunities that East Norfolk gives. And I like how the idea is that Andy and Anne both talked about putting a key in your pocket for all these opportunities. It's come from a place that's quite like deprived, that we don't really get these opportunities a lot. And so like having those skills as well is really important. So I think it's really good tool.
Fantastic, thank you. I shall relieve you of the little black box of doom and pass that to May. May, what did you think?
I thought it was really interesting when you said about like reindustrialising the ports and stuff, because I do think that not everyone is interested in like tertiary and quaternary more sectors, which is like service industry and technology, and I feel like that might be like part of the reason why like there's like that like lack of like the bridge between like education and then like jobs, because some like young like boys like go into more of a physical job and then like don't have anywhere really like that they can get into like a good well-paying job with that physical like crafts,
hands-on trades.
Yeah. So that's what I think. That's a good idea.
Thank you very much. So, Dottie, to you now. Your opinions?
I think definitely with like Mr. Daly was saying about like the continuous opportunities that NCA and like Meridian give us. I definitely think like I never worried about where I was going to go for work experience. I knew if I couldn't find somewhere, the school would have opportunities and doors open that I could just like ask for, and like it's always open. Like people going around asking if we wanted to do work experience, Costello Medical, and loads of my friends have gone and asked about work experience and be given like a primary school and like different opportunities that other schools may not have.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And lastly, to Lee, you what you said got reflected on quite a bit. So we'll finish with you. What do you make of that then?
Well, building off, I'm very grateful for all the opportunities, and I'm glad to be part of that statistic because, like you said, I went on the Abu Dhabi trip. I'm very lucky to have all these opportunities, and I can see how some people might miss out on these, especially in like the East Anglia area where loads of people's are part of the minority.
Sorry, carry on. No, if you've got anything else to say, I just don't want you to feel like pressured.
I don't know.
That's all right. No worries. Well, we shall break for coffee there. I think we've... Oh, sorry, Drew has another comment. Just hold that for the record.
I wanted to bring up something slightly different, still on the subject, but I want to talk a bit about young people's mental health. So following lockdown, I would say that people definitely are a lot more unmotivated, and the rise in technology, people spend a lot more time inside. So as unfair as it may be, I would say there's a lot more of a burden in recent years for people in industry to, like you said, give the keys. You really need to push that on people because young people don't have as big of an aspiration. Due to the mental health side effects of spending that much time inside, people just want to get by nowadays, especially people my age.
Well, that's a sobering thought to finish. Oh, there's applause from the room. Well, on that note, could you just say thank you to our young people, thank you to our panel. They've been absolutely fantastic. I couldn't have asked for better. So we will now break for coffee, but thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you.
The conversation now moves from before the start of our careers to somewhere in the middle to discuss career breaks, whether we choose them or not, and career pivots. This panel contains a frank discussion of mental and physical health issues, including my own. But it also contains incredibly inspiring stories of triumph and growth, of resilience and hope, which, spoiler alert, is really what matters in the end.
Right, everyone. Thank you. I feel like saying thank you for sticking around and coming back, and for what I hope is going to be a different take to this next session. It is going to feel quite different, but I think nonetheless it's very personal. I won't go as far as saying this is basically group therapy for me, but it might veer along those lines because
In 2018, I had a really quite severe mental breakdown. There will now be a short, uncomfortable silence. Thank you. That was what I was hoping for. Thank you. But I'm obviously much better now, mostly. And while I was sort of recovering, I started this whole Eastern Promise thing, trying to make use of my 15 years working for a Member of Parliament. I didn't want it all to have been for nothing, so that's why I started doing Eastern Promise. A lot of it is down to, he won't like this, but I'm going to do it anyway, the gentleman at the back there who basically helped me get going in the audio field, which has always been a bit of a passion of mine. But what I want to do before we go any further... yes, thank you. There you go. He gets a round of applause. He gets his due at last. What I want to do before we go any further, though, and Tarquin's very kindly reminded this, there are two quick orders of business I'd like to cover off. Could we please actually give a quick round of applause to Tarquin on the event of his 100th blood donation? Yeah. He's done so much for this, and he needs recognising in this public forum. So you, sir, are, my hat is off to you.
Thank you. It's why I'm a bit pale today, but thank you.
So there are plenty of biscuits and tea in the next room. And Sally, do you want to just say a bit about what you've got cooking?
Well, yes. So it's Jen's project, really, Project Cambridge.
Oh, hang on. We can get Jen as well. Yay. Chip in.
No, let's all do it.
All right.
So we found out recently, as many in the room will know, that Arthur Rank very tragically had an immense amount of their funding pulled from them, which they're very reliant upon. And there's a lot of people in this room and a lot of people within our network who've had family and friends and people that have, Arthur Rank have served very well. We want to do something to plug that gap. It's over £750,000, I think. So for some reason, we decided to do a parachute jump, but that's just one of a number of things that we will be doing over the next year. We have a very high figure that we want to raise in order to help plug that gap. And I know Charlotte and Jen and Mickey and other people in the room. Gareth just said that he may do it, and there are various people that are in. So thank you all for coming along to support us. We've got 40 places. I think about a dozen of them have gone so far, and we've only just got going this week. So very welcome to come and join us and be part of this.
Yeah. Do you want to just say what's Arthur Rank for those who might not know it?
It's a hospice in Cambridge. It's a local hospice.
Right, there you go. Fantastic. So that's a really important cause to support. But anyway, so just to go backtrack a bit. So I got thinking about career breaks, career pivots. I didn't choose my career break. I came to a screeching halt of a 15-year career that I enjoyed and I love very much, but I love this even more now, so I'm very fortunate, but it took me a long time to get to where I am now. There are people who choose to pivot. There are people who do not choose to pivot. And I want to explore the motivations and what's required of us to do that pivoting. And I've got a fantastic panel here. Tarquin's going to bring in some of the studies that his company, Compass Counter Osborne, have been doing around the issue of career breaks as well. But I'm just going to sit down. If you just quickly welcome your panel so I can take my seat and put this microphone down, and we'll crack on. So thank you. That's what it was, but, right. Here we are again. Do you want to we'll just go along the row, and for the purposes of the tape, as they say, introduce yourselves.
Shall I start, Mike?
You start.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm not sure whether my microphone's working. I'm Deborah Dawson. Most of you know me, and if you don't, hello and welcome to our offices. I work for Mills & Reeve. I am Business Development Manager, which is really about maintaining, enhancing relationships. We're a law firm, and that's not quite a sexy product to try and sell. And with financial services and legal services, a lot of that revenue, that growth that we try and achieve is through relationships. And we're big fans of Cambridge. We've been here since 1876. We're very much part of the community and that history and that legacy. And I've been here for about 2.5 years, but it's great to be on the panel. Thanks, Mike.
You're very welcome. My next guest is...
I'm Victoria Higgins, and I am a coach. I left GSK after nearly 29 years. This time last year, out of choice. It was very much lots of little pokes, lots of little niggles and whispers that I couldn't ignore anymore. And yeah, now I'm basically spending my time working with scientists one-to-one, women in science in particular, and corporates, just about bringing humanity back to teams in particular, but also about speaking to women about getting out of their own way, and this whole idea that maybe there are lots of opportunities out there, but we get in our own way, and until you believe in yourself, really nobody else is going to believe in you. So I'm massively passionate, and I think what I'm actually doing is coaching myself from about 30 years ago. So yeah, I absolutely love it. It's the best decision I've made.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Victoria. Sally.
Hi, my name's Sally Fields, and today I'm Head of Business Development at Cambridge Wireless. We're a membership deep tech organisation, not just in Cambridge, not just wireless technologies, but internationally. And the reason Mike's invited me here today is not really for the career that I have today, but because I had a big gap in my career. I used to have a wonderful, very fulfilling career many years ago, working for a global tech company that was acquired by Microsoft, and my life suddenly changed, and I had a very crazy time for about 10 years until I had an enforced career break, and that was because of family circumstances. During that time, I did have a number of jobs, and I would say they were jobs, not so much, they were a portfolio of jobs, not so much a portfolio career because they weren't paid. I was a volunteer, and there was no long-term plan, unfortunately. In hindsight, that was a big mistake, but there was no long-term plan. I worked for the Trust, who are the biggest food bank network within the UK. I worked for the East of England Ambulance Service as one of the volunteers that prop the NHS up today, so a community responder, responding particularly during COVID, but many years before that as to 999 calls within my own community, and for Home Start as well. Until I knew that one day I wanted to return to the corporate world. And when that day came in 2019, I was thinking, right, here I go, I'm back. So here's my CV, and it was tumbleweed, very unfortunately. And I hadn't really planned that time wisely. So when I left the workplace, LinkedIn, for example, had about 5 million members worldwide. When I re-entered the workplace, there were 500 million members worldwide, and I didn't even have a LinkedIn profile. Previously, I used to fly to Germany, or I used to fly to Copenhagen or Paris for a meeting. In those days, that's what you did. You didn't have a Teams call, which you do today. So the world of work had changed massively, and I hadn't really taken opportunity when I was re-entering the workplace as I should have done. I then went on to meet a lot of age discrimination, blatant age discrimination and age barriers, and so developed a social enterprise called Midlife 360 to help and support women going back into the workplace. There's a lot of misinformation about women or people aged over 50 that are not in the workplace, and at that time the Chancellor of the Exchequer actually told everybody, Jeremy Hunt told everybody to get off the golf course. If you were over 50, you were on the golf course. If you weren't in work, and that was just plainly wrong. So I actually had a meeting with Kemi Badenoch at the time, who today you'll know is the leader of the Conservatives, but at the time was the Minister for Women and Equalities. So that's the reason that Mike's asked me to be here today, was as the founder of Midlife 360.
Unfortunately, it took so long to organise this event. By the time it was actually coming to fruition, I'd forgotten why I'd asked you.
And also, I had to, my family circumstances changed again because I'm going through a divorce at the moment. I had to leave that social enterprise, which is a wonderful organisation, but go back into the paid world of work. So I'm now back in the world of tech, but it's been an incredibly squiggly route to get there. And I hope that my journey can perhaps inspire and offer hope to other people in my situation.
I think that's a word we're going to...
You know, enjoying it and understanding that qualifications can be fun as well as the experience bit.
I was going to say, I just looked
There is a
up
qualifications consultation out now.
30%,
You should be looking at
6%
that
of UK
as
employers
employers, people who have an interest. What is it that the government are saying they want to do with V levels, with the wider qualification and curriculum review? And do you have a view on that?
So my story, similarly, is less about my career now, which is in
whether you do or not, it's important.
and more about, I started off as a primary school teacher.
I think the second thing around
And then squiggly career. My mother became very ill over on the west coast of the US. It was with HIV/AIDS at the time, and I had to get her in hospice care. Very unusual, being a primary school teacher at the time and having to fly back and forth. So I started to join local business groups, one called the British Junior Chamber of Commerce that had a speakers club, which I know you were talking about earlier, and various other things. And that made me think maybe if I'm going to be doing supply teaching, I should look at alternative careers.
Absolutely. And we talked about
went to one of these meetings
the armed forces,
and someone said, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "I've sent 100 CVs out to not-for-profit charities.
Also,
I've had 3 replies, all who said thanks but no thanks. I don't think I have any skills in the real world. What do I do?"
Into medicine.
And this person said, "I just set up a
being
recruitment
playful and
company in
enjoying
life
qualifications and changing those routes,
25
that's
years
where the
later, I'm
uniform
still
thing came from, by the
doing
way,
that.
the CCF.
So
the second thing, very, very quickly,
career
is
all the time. You take
what we
breaks,
have to help young
enforced
people
and
understand
unenforced, and have to come back and
is the
have to
difference between
manage
distress and eustress.
and also as part of
and
it,
it's a
I
really
guess,
delicate thing we have to do in education, because if we try to take all stress out of education, you won't be as successful as you can be. Like, you need an element of elevation of stress to trigger some of the hormonal processes that can help you perform well. What we have to help them do is manage that, understand when that point breaks, and how to do that in a really sensitive and mature way. If we try to take all the stress away from the system, then they're not going to be the resilient young people that grow into the resilient adults that can deal with life challenges. So I think that's one of the huge challenges we have as educators, bearing in mind we're all trained to teach a subject that we are kind of trying to work our way through. And if you want to see a really great way of dealing with that, I was lucky enough to go to Norway. So Norway.
I mean, I think just before I come to Deborah and ask her to sort of talk a bit more about her experiences, my experiences when you're working in the political world, I spent 15 years as an MP's researcher for the same MP because I'm, clearly bananas, is that you think you watch too much West Wing, you watch too much Yes Prime Minister and the thick of it, and you think that you've got a career in consulting, that the minute you walk out the door, they're going to come. You know it all. You know all the doors to open, and you know everything. And it is not true. It is not true. It has been by doing a podcast that I've been fortunate enough to do that, and that was part of a healing process more than anything. But it's been the experiences I've had doing it have been so rich, so wonderful. Meeting these people, and anyone who's listening has just been, in the 4 years I've been doing it, has knocked the 15 years I spent in Parliament into a cocked hat. It's really awesome, and to meet these awesome people and talk to them now, Deborah.
Do you want me to start?
Start from the very beginning.
Well, my career journey has been squiggly. I think that's the word you mentioned earlier, Mike, and I do love that word. So, graduated from university, decent university, thought, right, corporate job. Got a really good job with Unilever and in marketing. So, worked with some really great brands like Magnum and Solero. So, I was in sales and marketing, looking at the key account management and the brands, looking at profitability, when we were going to put products on sale, like a bog off, we call it buy one, get one free. So I had all that amazing training at Unilever and thought, right, this is my career path. Slightly disillusioned after 2 years because it's such a massive company. You can't make decisions quickly because the chain is so big. And of course, you have to stick to processes, obviously. Unfortunately, I got meningitis, bacterial meningitis, really badly. Can't remember much of it. Spent 10 days in intensive care in London. And afterwards, I took a month off work, went back to Unilever and thought, right, get back on the sort of train, I'm back in it, and realised I was absolutely exhausted. It was almost like ME, and these were the after effects of meningitis. And so my partner at the time became my husband, said, right, come up to Suffolk. So I moved up to Suffolk, thought, right, I'm going to have a change of career, but then went back into marketing again, and that was with PowerGen. So that then became E.ON. So still kind of a corporate role, but a completely different service and product. And then my husband got relocated to Italy with his job. I got made redundant with PowerGen. So the timing was right to move. We thought, yeah, fresh start, move to Italy, brilliant. Everyone thinks the Dolce Vita, the food, the wine, the weather. And so we got into Italy. I thought, right, I'm going to retrain as a TEFL teacher, which is teaching English as a foreign language. I wasn't moving to Tuscany, Rome or Milan where I could find a corporate job. I was in the back end of nowhere. It was a very provincial town. I thought, right, I'm going to have to pivot my career and train as a teacher because that way I can get a job. And so I trained as a TEFL teacher, got my training, and within 3 days of moving to Italy, so we had no friends, no family there, didn't really speak the language. They put us on a 2-week intensive course. I found out I was pregnant. So it was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be my journey now. So I was sort of doing that and teaching and being pregnant and going through the whole Italian system around childcare. And so that was for about 10 years. I'm going to slightly fast forward. Having 2 boys in Italy, which was wonderful. Fast forward 10 years, we moved back to the UK. And I took a backseat role because my husband at the time, he was the breadwinner. He was on the corporate trajectory of, leadership. So we felt, right, we need one parent at home. So it was like a tag team. And I just took in a job as a PA and then project management for a boutique law firm that specialised in ESG, environmental, social and governance. And at the time, it wasn't really that known. Not as quite as sort of sexy as it is today, but we worked on a lot of projects with law firms, so major law firms, big Magic Circle, and they're like the top 4 law firms in the world. So we did that, and then I'm going to fast forward again, and then moved into a company called Collaborative Drug Discovery. Again, it was business development, so I've always kind of been in, we call it BD, business development. And that was for SaaS, so it's software as a service to drug discovery programs. And most of them were in Cambridge, but I spent most of my time in France because I could speak the language, and Italy because I could speak the language. So again, I was traveling a bit. My children were a bit older then, so my husband and I could tag team the childcare. That was very interesting, but I thought I don't want to be traveling to Europe every week. It was exhausting. And then I was approached with a job here in business development. And I thought, what, legal services? I kind of know legal services from my ESG consulting days. But then moving into Mills & Reeve, I heard so many great things about it. The people, it's the people that make Mills & Reeve. I'm here now, 2.5 years in the heart of Cambridge. My remit is Cambridge, live, breathe and eat Cambridge.
You really took the squiggly part of squiggly career to heart.
I did. It was very squiggly, Mike. Yeah, very squiggly. But can I just say something, Mike? With all those different jobs, it makes you build up resilience. And you think, oh, I can't do that. But then you're chucked into the deep end, like moving to a foreign country, not speaking the language, and having to pivot. It's amazing how you can survive and adapt. And these life skills do bring a certain richness to the current job of resilience, flexibility, having to pivot and move.
Yeah, there's kind of a better version of, for the want of a nail, it's kind of the inverse of that. It's only because I'd had this experience that these things are happening further down the track. Yeah. And the other thing I'll say about Mills & Reeve is we quite often have Mills & Reeve on panel recordings we do, someone from Mills & Reeve, and there's so many people who said, well, I was doing this. I mean, James Fry, I don't know if he's in this building now, he's like, I was a chemist, and now he's working in the legal system, so there's so many opportunities under that. But I want to come to Victoria and ask for first a reflection on the rest of the panel, but also that dread word imposter syndrome. Yeah. You must come across that a lot. I mean, both in when you whether you did it when you started, but also in your work. So I just want you to reflect on the panel and then talk about perhaps imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So I think what I wanted to say about the squiggly career thing is that I was, or on the surface, even to the point of this time last year, it looked like I'd done everything by the book. Good girl. I was like, when I was at school, top of the class, give me all the homework. My mum used to say I was born 40 because I was so sensible, didn't do any of that teenage rebelling, you know, GCSEs, A-level, university, job, masters, married, child, another child. Kind of looks as though I did it all by the book. Underneath all of that, I had extreme anxiety, was diagnosed with clinical depression in my mid-30s, had a load of miscarriages that I just kind of like carried on through, had spinal abscesses, at which point I was nearly dead, and thank you very much, didn't have Tarquin's blood, but had a load of blood. All this kind of stuff, and every time you go through these things in life, it's these life experiences and these sometimes negative life experiences that give you the teachings and lessons that really matter. So I think Mike and I started talking because one of the really pivotal things that happened to me is that all the way through this kind of career, from being a scientist to looking after all UK strategic partnerships for GSK R&D, I'd had lots of little whispers, lots of little nudges of, I'm not quite sure this is really where you were meant to be. I never wanted to work in pharma, ever. I never wanted to work in London. I grew up in Cornwall. I went to Cardiff Uni, and then obviously I met a boy in London, and I moved to London, and then I thought, I've got to get some sort of job, so I'll sign up to one of these lab staff agencies, and I got a job at Wellcome, and then all of a sudden, ping, there I was 29 years later. But a few years ago, I've got two daughters, one's 9 and one's 17, but a few years ago, my daughter who is autistic and has ADHD and has OCD and has buckets of anxiety. She'd masked her way through school. She'd been in middle school during COVID, so a lot of the time she wasn't at school. And then she went to upper school, and she developed a load of tics as well. And basically she got bullied. And we went from her being able to cope and just exploding at home to her having a massive breakdown. And we'd been through all the kind of legal processes of getting her an EHCP in place, so Educational Healthcare Plan. And that is painful. And the school had done as much as they possibly could. I couldn't fault the SEND people. I couldn't fault any of the teachers because teachers are amazing. But the system is horrendous. So we ended up taking her out, and she got tutored. But until we got from that place of breakdown to her having regular tutoring, it was about 8 months. And I was very blessed that being at GSK and being probably at a certain level of seniority, I took 6 months out. And I was supported in doing that. But during that 6 months, this is a bit, if you think about a seesaw, I think I'd got all this stuff on this side. It's going, I'm not sure, not quite sure what you're meant to be, not quite sure. And then as soon as the thing happened with my daughter, it was like that. And during that 6 months out, I also came across a coaching training course, and I'd loved coaching. There was times in my life when I'd had coaching, and it'd definitely been very insightful and very helpful. But I started on this training course, and when you're training as a coach, you do hundreds of hours of being coached yourself. And suddenly you're given all this time to sit in front of somebody and be listened to and be asked questions, and you're thinking around things. And then I discovered the whole thing about one of my personal values, and oh my God, like this thing about freedom and autonomy is like number one for me. And justice and fairness is really important, and that's why I would support people in my team to go through like grievance procedures and stuff like that, because I'd be like, this isn't bloody fair. I don't care what the process is, or that the person who's bullied you is an SVP, it's not bloody fair. So I would go red rag to a bull down that. And all these coaching hours just made me understand what was really important to me. And I started questioning everything in my life. So my daughter had made me think, education. I was just bang, 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 bang. I've had these two children who I expected to be like me, really academic, really love learning. They weren't. So I had to go through the grieving procedure of, oh my God, these kids aren't who I expect them to be, but they're bloody brilliant and I love them. And actually, success isn't about maybe, getting qualifications, doing things, getting your GCSEs when you're 16, getting your A-levels when you're 18, going to university. It can be all sorts of different things. Yeah. So my mind was just kind of like going expand, expand, expand. And then I went back to work after my 6 months out, and it was just like I was a different person. I was like questioning everything. And largely what success is, and the fact that I had like, a 6-figure salary, really impressive job title, would turn up at networking events in Cambridge. Oh, here are you, I'm Victoria Higgins, Head of Strategic Partnerships for GSK. But I was like, well, this isn't really doing it for me anymore. It really isn't. Yeah. And you'll know what a farmer's like, every now and again, every year there's a big reorg, people get made redundant. And I would say for years to people, I'm not quite sure this is what I'm meant to be. And they'd be like, hang on, you'll be made redundant soon. Hang on for the redundancy. Hang on for the redundancy because you'll get a wad of cash. And I was like, yeah, but it's not happening. I'm like that, hi. And I know redundancy isn't great for a lot of people. I'm not saying it's a fantastic thing, but I got to a point where I was like, I can't wait anymore. I'm like 52 years old and I'm not getting what I need from this. So September last year, I just gave my notice in. And I expected to feel like, oh my God, oh, what's going to happen? And it was like such a sort of anticlimax. It's like I gave my notice in, my boss was like, what the fuck? Excuse me.
I'll just click the explicit box, it's fine.
And I was like, it was a massive relief.
Yeah.
I'd been doing my coaching practice on the side for a couple of years. I loved it. It was like, this is the thing I want to do. And so I just left, and this has been my whole first year of being self-employed. I just decided to say yes to everything and see what I enjoyed. And then now I have this combination of like one-to-one clients. I run like a small group coaching program for women in science because I really want to work with women and let them know that they're bloody brilliant no matter what all the noise says. And then I work with teams just to get past all the corporate bullshit. And again, for teams to work on a human level. I mean, I love Kevin and what you guys do and Suzanne. It sounds like you have loads of fun. I mean, being in teams, doing great things is fun.
That's what we do.
Why do we have to just like make it boring? Anyway, I'll shut up.
No, it's been fine. It's been great. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. Sally, I mean, could you just reflect on your experience with what you started, co-founded, and what you went through, and what the kind of effect of those breaks were, and how they got, what steps helped resolve them in the work you did?
I think one thing that was really obvious to me when I wanted to go back into the workplace, and you talked about Maslow earlier on, I studied Maslow a great deal when I was younger. Very few women re-entering the workplace, and men as well, because there are men re-entering the workplace in their 50s, reach that self-actualization ever. They often take jobs and roles that they're overqualified for. Availability is a skill. Some people, are very happy doing roles that they're overqualified for, but a lot of women that I met were not. And we do know, when I started a limited company as my first step re-entering the workplace when I couldn't get a job. I thought, well, if nobody's going to give me a job, I'll create a job for myself. Started a limited company, met Sue Walden, who opened her network to me, and I owe a massive gratitude towards. And then met a lot of employers within Cambridge who the biggest challenge that they had was the lack of talent and skills in their organisation. So you've got, on one side, you've got a load of people in their 50s who want to work but don't see a place for themselves in the world of work. And you've got a load of employers who are crying out for talent but just don't see it. I started working with the CPCA, who had commissioned a report with Dan and Cambridge Ahead and Rand Europe, looking at why we struggle so much within this region, but it's endemic across the UK, to attract and retain people in their 50s within the workplace. I started working with the Centre for Ageing Better, who demonstrated very powerfully that ageism is the most acceptable form of discrimination today. It's in our language, it's in the way we speak to each other, it's a Western cultural thing. And we do know that neuroplasticity does decline with age, without a doubt. It's more difficult to adopt new skills, to learn new things, adopt new procedures. However, the evidence is very clear that we talked about failing. We talk about, I've had huge successes in my career. I've had huge failures, enormous stonkers of failures. And from those, I've really learned from them. And my employer today gains from how I've failed in the past. And younger people don't have that history of failure and success so much. So in our 50s, we have much, typically, more ingrained emotional intelligence. We have more adaptability. We have more diversity in our perspectives on life, and there's a lot that we have to offer. But how do we manage to re-enter the workplace when the algorithms within CVs don't allow us to get the interviews, when we meet blatant discrimination? I was very lucky in the route that I took, and a lot of the people in this room, I owe a huge debt of gratitude. I mean, Sue, as I mentioned, Fiona was on my board of directors, my board of advisors at Midlife 360. Dan was as well. Anne Bailey gave me my first contract in my limited company. Gareth John opened his house, his restaurant, his network. This is an incredible ecosystem that we are within. And I think my message is, I've forgotten what the question you asked originally, but my message is absolutely one of hope. I think we're really fortunate, the region that we live in. But there's hope, and a squiggly route is sometimes the way you get around the algorithms to finding success again and working towards that Maslow self-actualisation.
Absolutely, and even yesterday at the FSB event, one of the first speakers, Adam Smith of Help Bank, and as Fiona will know, was talking about how he was working in science, and he came up with redundancy, but he wasn't like, oh no, what am I going to do? He was like, yes, I get a payout because he's got so many debts. He was like, thank God for that. But squiggly careers. Some of the people who've achieved the most in our society have had those squiggly careers. And before I bring Tarquin in, I just want to reflect on the fact that I've been so fortunate to interview so many exceptional people, and today's no exception. One thing that struck me is how many of those are brilliant women and they've stood out. But it's what concerns me is the toll of that standing out that it takes on those women, and the fact that what about those are some really impressive women who've sort of, by sheer guts, hope and resilience, have made their way to the top. What about those who don't have those reserves of hope and resilience? And what are we losing there? And you've all done, this man knows! Go for it.
I just knowing
for the listener, he stuck his hand up.
Yes, I stuck my yes. To just follow up, because obviously I've heard some of the stories before, which are so powerful. Some of you may know a book by Lucy Ryan, and I know we talked about this, called Revolting Women, and it's Why Midlife Women Are Walking Out. And she describes how when she first went with the idea for the book, no one was interested, because no one, dear, wants to read about old women. So I just thought, what a great place to start, because the conversation is here. And one of the things that I think fits so nicely about hearing what gendered ageism is real. For women, it's more acutely found than men. And we're in this stage, I think, with this midlife collision. Statistics show that 92% of women take the lead in caring for the family. So it's not just, the younger generation, but the older. So the expectation, particularly post-COVID, which has increased that, is that women are expected to do these things, and expected to do them at a very time of life when there are other chemical, hormonal things going on that make things more complex. Now, men don't have those same issues, but very often men will still push out the way. And again, in advance of this, I wanted to look at some of the things that men have said about women. So in 2020, around the COVID time, the government contacted a whole load of companies with CEOs, board directors, and said, what are your thoughts about getting more women into the C-suite? And I'm just going to read you a couple of these because I love these. So the first one is, I don't think women fit into our organisation and team. Most women don't want the hassle or the pressure. Is that true? And my favourite is, we already have one, thanks, so we're done. So, tick the box, exactly.
Basically, sexism is wrong, but don't worry, you're pretty to the head.
Right. But I think back to your points earlier is the teachings, the lessons that we can take away from this, and I know from my own experience too, is that as a teacher I found and discovered that even though I didn't know recruitment work, I'd learned that, it's still people with the same sort of issues you have as children. You still have to prepare the same way I had to prepare for a lesson, and you had to be curious. And I think curiosity, along with resilience, is something that can get you through those really tough times. I want to know Sally's story. I want to know Victoria's story. I want to know Deborah and about how you survived in Italy in those circumstances, or how Victoria's managing, to homeschool a child while running her own business, and how Sally came back and is going to be jumping out of an aircraft for charity. These are really fascinating stories. So I think we need more of these stories. Get them out there. Push you to the front, stale, male, pale, send me to the back, off you go.
We love you.
Well, I don't know how to follow that. Does any of the panel have any more reflections before I open the floor to see if anyone has a comment or a point to make before we move to the next panel?
Can I just add one thing, and I think Tarquin picked it up there, and probably it's come up before, but when you're thinking about your experiences that you put on a CV or how you sell yourself or whatever, it isn't just about qualifications. It is about the life experiences you get from everything you went through, if you mine these peak experiences of our life, and they might not be peak as in up, they might be trough, you have gained so many skills. And we forget about them.
And you don't know about them because you don't see them when you're
No,
in
you
the
don't.
trough.
But when you tell your story to other people, so this is a really good exercise to go through. Tell your story to other people, and they'll say, these are the traits I see in you because of the way you handled that. Resilience, curiosity, adaptability, flexibility, relationship skills, emotional intelligence. These are all the sort of intangible but absolutely critical skills that unless you take the time to really think about what you've been through in your life, you will miss those. But other people will see them. So share your story.
I think hope and resilience are those real golden threads. I'm going to leap out of my seat. Does anybody have a quick point or a comment? Yes. Oh, Drew, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I have a question. So a vote kind of would be good. How many of you would say that your experience is more important for your career as a whole compared to your education? Especially for me, going into the world of work, I'm very curious to see what really matters.
What a great question.
Yeah, good question. Oh, I think sorry, can I just comment that I think that when we entered the world of work, it was a very different time to now. I mean, you'd get a degree and it'd be like, oh, which job shall I have? Now it's like you're a sausage machine. Everybody's got a degree. So I do think actually experiences are a differentiator. So I think that might be more.
I would agree with you, Victoria. It's
now.
definitely experience. Certainly in my job, experience really matters. But when we started 25 years ago, whatever, maybe more, 30, you got the degree. You know, if you got a 2-1, you were on the fast track management scheme like that. Now, it just seems to be so vanilla, can I use that word?
Yeah. Yes.
And you have to bring more to the table. And I think it's really hard for the young, and I've got 2 very, young boys that are at university. They're going to come out with degrees, but no experience. How can they get that experience when they can't be employed? So it's a vicious circle. I think it really is a vicious circle, and I'm hoping something's going to happen there, whether they do voluntary work or something to add to the table to try and get it.
Interesting what I've learned about Drew already from this morning is that you work in a care home, don't you? So look at that great experience. We got talking about dementia patients, and next week's episode, folks, we're talking to Cambridge consultants and Music from My Mind about the work they've done bringing in AI and the music of our teenage years to help dementia patients with the reminiscence bump.
Can I just say, Max, so I actually took a year out before university and worked in a care home for a year because my mum was a nurse and she was a matron and ran a care home. That was one of the most valuable experiences of my life, working with the elderly and getting to understand their perspective and their lived experience was invaluable. And when I went to university, I actually read a sandwich degree. So I did a 4-year degree, 3 years studying and 1 year in industry. And that was really important. So my degree at the start of my career was very, very important to me, enabled me to get to where I wanted to be. But in the latter phases of my career, it was the experience. So there's no right or wrong answer. And we're so fortunate now. You know, we've got Gareth in the room who will talk about apprenticeships. There are so many different routes and gives, you know, young people the opportunity to see things that they otherwise wouldn't. There are so many different routes. I didn't have that then. I came from a northern town called Halifax. You either went to grammar school and then you went to the Halifax Building Society, or you went to university, and those were your 2 options. So it's very much dependent upon the individual, I would say.
Sorry. Just one thing, which I'd also say it's connections too. Experience means a lot, but it's also connections. And what you have here, and I said this to you in the break, is connect to the people here. You know, if any of you are having a career break, well, here are 3 great people to talk to about going back. There are websites and things, by the way, that I'm happy to share later on where you can go for career breaks. But I'd say get those connections. I was really lucky too. So I didn't know what I was going to do. In my last year of school, my father had to have a heart operation. I had to look after him. The head teacher, who was amazing, said to me, why don't you stay on and teach for a period of time while he's convalescing? I did that and thought, I love this teaching thing. And he put a letter for me to do teacher training here at Homerton College. Now, none of that would have happened without that head teacher taking active interest. And that made me think, actually, it's about connections. He knew somebody who got me an interview I wouldn't have got otherwise. So build those connections, build them here.
And I should say it's never too late to make those connections, because the 5 people and a dog that I knew when I left, just doing this has expanded my boundaries immensely, just to actually sort of get into the Cambridge ecosystem, get into the Suffolk and the Ipswich ecosystem, and just get in there and nose around has been just one of the most honours, greatest honours of my life after marriage and 1 small child. Kevin, I come to you.
Just going back to what you said at the start, Mike, about opening up about your mental health, I think it's really, really important, and to do that in an open environment like this and be honest about it. You don't know how many people you've helped today because they listened to it and they might think, actually, I'm going to seek some help. Because they might not be quite at the position that you got to, but they might now seek help because you've opened up about it, so well done.
That's all right. Yes. I've told enough people personally, so no, it's quite interesting because we were at the point now where my wife had to tell my workplace to contact her directly on email and only email because the letters coming through, which weren't threatening, they were just standard HR fare, and this was Parliament, remember, where and I just could not cope with it. I couldn't open it, I couldn't look at it, not anything like that. As we've said, that's part of the journey. It's like every good quest, every good story. There's ups and downs and drama, but I'm in a much happier place than I ever was. Fiona, is that a hand up?
It is.
It's a tentative hand up.
Excuse me. Interrupting you.
fantastic panel, actually. It's just amazing. It's given me loads of ideas for other things, so it's brilliant. But what I've noticed, that there's a theme that's coming through the week, not just today, is, as many know, I hosted International Men's Day on Tuesday this week, and one of my panels was on mental health and on men speaking out and really listening, but also young boys coming through the system as well, man up and, healthy masculinity instead of what they're saying. So it's really refreshing that we're continuing and hearing those discussions, because young people have it a lot worse now. COVID has a lot to answer for when young people are coming out, and they've got a lot to battle through. The generation that's come before them are already battling things, and they're also coping with young people, and that's putting pressure and anxiety onto parents. That's causing anxiety and depression. And then, as we heard this week at the International Men's Day, and on the panel, the construction sector has 4 times the amount of suicides with men, and the most deaths in the UK for men under 55 is suicide. So we need to be, as a result of this and hearing what we're talking about earlier in the week, and keeping talking, probably in every single panel that we do, every single event that we go to, we should be always talking about it and opening up structures that allows people to do it. And just finally, it was great to also hear a man, even though it's International Men's Week, talking about women's experience and how unjust it is, because we are in a society that it should be about equity and balance for all genders, for everyone to feel that they're listened to and heard. So thank you.
Well, I'm going to be daft and go slightly on record now, that what worries me with the anti-woke push that we seem to be experiencing at the minute, a certain kind of white man is trying to take back something that was never ours to begin with. So that's how I feel about it. So there you go. Anyone else got a question? Gareth.
Not a question, but a reflection actually on what Sally was saying about stonking failure, which really resonated. I've had as many failures as successes in my career. In fact, I think that's why I've had success, is because I've been willing to embrace failure. And I think for young people particularly, I think that's a message they really need to take away, because I do think our educational system, I think the biggest disservice it sometimes offers our young people is putting success on a pedestal and stigmatizing failure, when actually, when you're far enough on in your life, you realize those two things are just bedfellows and naturally go together, and particularly not to be afraid of failure.
I think in our education system and our culture today, we do not teach young people to fail. I've got an 18-year-old, and I hope I've encouraged him to see failure as something positive, because we learn from it and we grow stronger from it.
Can I just very quickly as well pick up, because it was such a good point you said about the suicide piece, because again, I was on a panel on International Men's Day, and I looked up the statistics. I think it's really important to come at this from all angles. And actually, women attempt suicide in greater numbers than men do, but men's suicide tends to be more violent in nature and is, horrible term, but more successful as a consequence. But I think sometimes we need to break away from the, what affects men and women, and just think actually there is a societal piece here that we have to look at. I noticed, I was reading at the weekend, that in Lithuania they've reduced the number of deaths by suicide by 50%, so they've halved it in 20 years by creating a suicide prevention bureau and making suicide prevention community-based rather than having it medicalised. And that's been a huge impact. So I was just thinking that you're absolutely right about certain industries, but also thinking we need to, rather than them and us, it's about together. How do we do that? Yeah.
Caroline, I'll come back to you, Simon.
Thank you, Mike. It's just from Groundwork East, a community and environmental charity, and just on the topic of mental health. One of the things that we do is connect people in nature, and nature provides huge benefit for mental health. So, a little plug: on the 2nd of December, we've got a volunteering day at Hitchinbrook Park for anyone that wants to go along and help out there, chat to others, be outdoors, and help to improve community space. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the things we looked at the recent Newtown Sandbox we did was the ability of creating green infrastructure to create a new community, get people together and planting their green spaces themselves, meet, you then talk about what brought them to the place. Simon.
Thank you. I've got like a million things to say, but I'm just going to try and keep it quite short. I think Drew's question about quals versus experience, that's something we battle with as an education system a lot. I think the important thing is helping young people understand when they need the qualifications. Like, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So if you want to go into medicine, there is a very specific route, really from year 8, that you need to be thinking about. So it's helping them understand when it really matters and when they can be more playful with it. And I think, the idea of being playful with education, enjoying it and understanding that qualifications can be fun as well as the experience bit is really important. There is a qualifications consultation out now. You should be looking at that as employers, as people who have an interest. What is it that the government are saying they want to do with V-levels, with the wider qualification curriculum review? And do you have a view on that? Because if you do, they want to hear from you. And whether you do or not, it's important that you kind of know what's coming with that. I think the second thing around...
Sorry, can I just... You mentioned in the break, because I think it's really relevant here, the CCF. So within your school, and obviously there is...
CCF, do you want to just...
Combined Cadet Force. And it just made me think again, there's an avenue there towards being a medic in the Army or the Navy or whatever, which would be a different path, but an opportunity that may not require the same sorts of qualifications, but to still get that, and sponsored by that particularly military branch. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about bursaries through the armed forces, where you can get £4,000 for the second year of college and then fully funded degree and do 3 years in the armed forces. Also, big shout out to Anglia Ruskin, who were the first university to take T-level health as a route into medicine. So being playful and enjoying qualifications and changing those routes. The second thing, very, very quickly, is what we have to help young people understand, I think, is the difference between distress and eustress. And it's a really delicate thing we have to do in education, because if we try to take all stress out of education, you won't be as successful as you can be. Like, you need an element of elevation of stress to trigger some of the hormonal processes that can help you perform well. What we have to help them do is manage that, understand when that point breaks, and how to do that in a really sensitive and mature way. If we try to take all the stress away from the system, then they're not going to be the resilient young people that grow into the resilient adults that can deal with life's challenges. So I think that's one of the huge challenges we have as educators, bearing in mind we were all trained to teach a subject that we are kind of trying to work our way through. And if you want to see a really great way of dealing with that, I was lucky enough to go to Norway. So Norway place universal services in their schools and colleges. So mental health, GPs, dentists, career settings, they sit in the physical body of the college, which is open to the community, and the community go in and access those, but it means that young people have them on their doorstep. When I was a head teacher for a few years, we had a clinical psychologist based in our school for 3 years that I got funding for, which was amazing. And that's the kind of stuff that we could be doing differently.
Right, I'm going to wrap up there because we do need to move on to our next panel, but I think that could have gone on a lot longer. First of all, I just want to... hope and resilience, I think, are the two key things for me. And just a quick... hope is a funny story. The day of my breakdown, first I assaulted a perfectly innocent filing cabinet, which you shouldn't do, I don't recommend. Hid under a desk for a bit, and then, I don't know how many people here know DIS at all in Norfolk. Well, there's a mere there. I don't think they've ever found the bottom of the mere, and in hindsight, quite foolishly, I decided to go out and sit by the mere and contemplate walking in. And our office was not far from it. And halfway down the street, I was stopped for directions by a poor lady who was lost. And despite everything, I managed to give them. And I say that not to make you laugh, or to just think that the resilience is there, even though you don't know it at the time. You will find, and I hope you will find, and I know you will find, that you have far more reserves than you think you have, than all of us think we have. So can I just end by asking you to express your appreciation for this wonderful panel, sharing those stories. Thank you all.
Finally, let's join our 4 distinguished experts in skills policy, the needs of employers, of businesses large and small, who join me to discuss everything we've heard and put that into a wider context, to ask, what do we do next?
So I'm going to ask you to go along I think everyone knows who you are, but just for the purposes of the tape again, go along and tell us who you are and what organisation you represent, or in most of these cases lead.
Good morning, everybody, or even afternoon now, I think, Mike, 'cause you've led us through such amazing panels very quickly. But I'm Charlotte Horrobin. I'm the Chief Executive of the Cambridgeshire Chamber of Commerce. We locally do a huge amount of work across the wider county, something called the Local Skills Improvement Plan, which aims to make sure that we're bringing about employer opportunity to young people and our wider residents across the county. So how do we make sure that you understand the true opportunities that are there, but also the skills and the qualifications that you need, no matter what age you are. But also, I've been very proud to be a trustee of university technical colleges. I work very closely with universities. I'm an enterprise advisor, and as an employer, we make sure that we are a small business in our own right, but we actively look after and make sure we're taking on work experience, providing opportunities. So this is something that's close to my heart as a human, but also to what we want to do as an organisation.
And I'm not trying to continue the uniform thing, but you were a cadet once yourself, were you not?
I was a proud cadet warrant officer, yes. That's how I met my husband.
There you go. I don't know what to say in response to that, so I'm going to move straight on to Dan.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan from Cambridge Ahead. We're a grouping of businesses and academic organisations in Cambridge. So a bit similar to Charlotte's organisation in setup. The difference with us, I suppose, is what we exist to do is to find ways to support the place to grow in the right way, to support the growth of the Cambridge economy in a way that benefits more people and is more sustainable. We've heard some examples of the sorts of things we do. Ultimately, it usually means creating research or analysis that our elected officials can use to help them think through the decisions that they need to make about the growth of this place.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Owen.
Hi everyone, I'm Owen Garling. I work at the Bennett School for Public Policy, which is part of the University of Cambridge. We're particularly interested in research into how policy is made, and the kind of the elements that we focus on are around place, so picking up kind of Dan's point about the importance of understanding localities. We look at progress, so how do we know whether things are getting better or not? And we look at how decisions are made as well. And then the final theme is around productivity as well. And my work there kind of sits between the research that we do and the world of policy as well. So how do we make sure that people who are thinking about these things have the evidence to support those decisions that they're making as well. And as part of my role also, I work locally across East Anglia, thinking about the economy and thinking about questions of productivity and what are the kind of the drivers that support productivity in the region, but also which hinder it too, and what are the kind of interventions that we can look at. And skills is obviously one of those kind of key questions that we're looking at. And what's really interesting is that often maybe central government will look at things at the perspective of a region, but actually when you dig below the surface, you understand that there are real differences within place as well. So how do you can flex policy to understand those and support those different differences as well?
And finally.
So I'm Gareth John. I'm a director with an independent training provider called First Intuition. So we train accountants. And actually one of the privileges I find training accountants is accountants work everywhere. So we work with accountancy firms, we work with businesses, with accountancy teams, work with the NHS, so we train Addenbrooke's accountants, for instance. We deliver a lot of apprenticeships. Apprenticeships has been one of the most transformational changes in our industry in the last decade or two. From levels 2 to level 7, we work with school leavers, we work with graduates. In fact, there's been a big shift towards school leaver recruitment in the last few years. I was chatting to Simon earlier, Dr. Simon Fox. We actually work with some of the alumni coming out of his accountancy T-level programme, coming into apprenticeships up in Norfolk. I also chair the skills group of Cambridge Ahead, so work very closely with Dan and his team, looking at skills more holistically across the region. And actually, I've taken a bit of a pivot in recent years into hospitality. So
you certainly have, and very good it is too.
Well, a restaurant and a wine bar, which has given me a real insight into challenges that other sectors face, and maybe we'll touch on things like the industrial strategy during this conversation.
Absolutely. So coming back to you, Charlotte, first of all, just before, I'd like to get your reflections on what you've heard this morning, but before I do, I just want you to touch on what was, I'm really sad I wasn't there, but by all accounts a very well received summit you held in Peterborough, and just if you want to reflect on anything that came out of that for you.
Thank you, Mike. So in September, we brought together about 190 employers to celebrate. And I think one of the key messages I love our front row to take away is business is a force for good. It's really important that we provide an environment that businesses can be successful in, because that's where we create jobs, opportunities, careers, but we also create those tax receipts that make sure that we can fund our much needed roads, our nurses, our doctors and our teachers, and therefore the whole ecosystem fits together, hopefully, very, very well. And what we wanted to do was celebrate the success, because I think we can so easily turn to what's not working well and what policy needs to happen. And don't get me wrong, you know, we've all got a role behind the scenes to influence that, but also you can be the master and mistress of your own destiny. Sometimes you just have to take some action and influence at the same time. And that was really showcasing a number of different industries and opportunities and careers from across the whole of our very, very diverse county. You know, if you look at Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, we've got about 40% of the grade 1 agricultural land in the country. That's phenomenal. We've got Cambridge, #1 superpower for science and technology. We've got Peterborough, which boasts the most, you know, amazing manufacturing and logistics hub in the country. So as a county, we want to really showcase the breadth of opportunity that perhaps is hidden underneath the headlines.
Okay, what have you made of, start again. What have you made of this morning so far?
I think it's really important that we're listening and not telling, and that we're not patronising, that we're not using the wrong language. You know, we talk about, Dan and I were talking about green skills a week or so ago, and employers will talk about green skills, but what does that actually mean if you're a young person living in Lowestoft or in Great Yarmouth or Cambridge? What do those things really mean? So I think it's great that we're having conversations not as grown-ups or young people, but just as humans.
Fantastic. So, Gareth, you stuck your hand up there for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I attended the Skills Summit, and I just wanted to kind of reflect, firstly, on what a great event it was amongst many events that the Chamber have been running. And actually, I think Charlotte is such a brilliant powerhouse for our region. But the takeaways I took from that summit was, firstly, the way that the Chamber is now working so closely with the combined authority and creating, you know, a really collaborative system. I mean, the new Mayor, Paul Bristow, was there to speak. You had Andrea Wood, who leads on skills at the combined authority. And that mutual partnership, along with FE colleges, independent training providers, employers, is going to be so important for the next iteration of local growth plans and local skills improvement plans. But the other thing I really loved, there was panel discussions, and they were about skills quite broadly, but I think every single panellist talked about the power of apprenticeships. And I would like to give a bit of a shout out to Drew from earlier, because Drew did give a bit of a shout out to apprenticeships as well, whereas there was quite a lot of discussion of university as well. And we are seeing progress, but I still think that there's a bit of an imbalance in the way that, because, you know, you saw how many employers were talking about apprenticeships at that summit, and yet I think at school and college and at education, there's still not quite that parity with degree routes.
Thank you, Gareth. Dan, do you want to just reflect on the morning and perhaps any thoughts emerging from it?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the main thing going through my head, and then I've got some other thoughts if you want to hear them later on. But I suppose the main thing going through my head is that we have, like, at the heart of this really is just some incredible people doing great things. Like you yourself, Mike, but everyone else, everyone else that you've put on the panel and that we've heard from, it is really striking how much difference people are making to this kind of issue that you've brought us all here together to talk about. So that's one thing. And then we're talking about the skills system, which in sort of my sort of policy world is such an unwieldy, complex, hard policy system and under-resourced to understand. You know, if someone asked me to draw the planning system, I could have a good go at it, or the transport system I could. If someone asked me to draw the skills system, I couldn't do that. So I think it's a particularly complicated sort of system, but at odds with that, we've just got some brilliant people doing brilliant things. So the big thing that's been going through my head, and I realise this is quite sort of high ambition, is We should absolutely chip away at making the system better, and that Gareth is working with us a lot on that. But really what would make a difference is just finding a way to give more resource to those brilliant people doing good things. That would make an impact, I think. That's what strikes me. And if we think about that in Cambridge, that feels like an opportunity, because Cambridge is an incredibly successful place, yet the success generated here generally kind of, in terms of taxes raised and those sorts of things, generally flows back to national governments rather than being retained locally. And I feel if we're going to do like one big thing, we should make the case that Cambridge and the region around it gets to keep a little bit more of that success, the revenue that it generates through the success of the economy. And if Cambridge did get to keep a little bit more of that, I think from knowing and working with a lot of the elected officials around our patch, they would use a good amount of that resource towards the issues that we've been talking about this morning. Because everyone talks about trying to make the skills system better. Everybody's talking about trying to make growth more inclusive and equal in this city region. But the resource to do it is really, really limited. So the thing that strikes me is we should chip away at the policy stuff, trying to make the system better. But the big thing we should be trying to do is find a way to put more resource in the hands of the people that are on the ground doing this stuff.
I think as you know, the Treasury being the Treasury, I mean, I'm good perhaps Owen to reflect on this now, but you know, it's how you construct that case in a way that says, you're asking the Treasury to let you keep more of your money. How dare you? And it's trying to sell them on something that we know is possible and achievable, but they'll say, hang on, where's your evidence? Where's your data? And I know that's an area where Cambridge Ahead in particular...
I think that's what we should do. I think that's the thing, or people like me should be working towards.
Well, and we can. Owen.
Thanks, Mike. Firstly, it's been fascinating to be able to sit here and listen to so many different perspectives on the same question. I think it's really important to bring those voices together in the same way. There were three things I wanted to talk about, and I was going to do them in one order, but having Dan spoken, I'm going to change the order in which I'm going to talk about this stuff. So firstly, one theme that's really come through for me is the importance of narrative. So how do we tell the story of place and the importance of these things? And it's one of those things that I think it's a continual journey. It's not something you can do immediately. It takes time. I think if you look at the work that's been going on in Greater Manchester, for example, it's really interesting how they can tell a story of what they're doing. So I think there's some kind of coherence around how we understand that. And maybe some of that is understanding how the system works as well. But also it's placing it within the real world. Someone earlier said, this is the world. And I think it's really important to place the education system within that as well and think about it in its kind of broadest context. The second point that kind of came across for me, and this is probably because I'm quite obsessed by ideas around place, is that what is it that makes a good place? And what's the importance of understanding what's needed in places, whether they're places that are doing well or places that are doing less well. And it's that mix of people and skills that you need to have. You can't just have one thing. You need to have a range of different things in a place to make it work. So how do you effectively do that in a way that suits those places that already have things going on and build on what's already there and understand the gaps that need to be worked on? But how do you bring together both kind of the business side of things, but also the cultural elements? What attracts people back to go and live in the place that they left when they were 18? How do you support those kind of things as well, I think is really important. And then my third and final point for the time being is I spend a lot of time with economists, which is great. But really one of the things that really comes through in this conversation and other conversations I've been having around skills recently is often it feels like it's a question of supply and demand. So young people want to get into work, are thinking about what they need to do. Older people are out of the workforce, want to try and get into the system. And employers are looking for people as well. So it feels like there's this real matching exercise that needs to take place that understands how you bring those different people together in the right way to give those opportunities and bring in that diversity of thought and experience, but also think about skills and learning as a lifelong process. It doesn't finish when we're 18 or 16. It carries on, and actually that's the flexibility that enables us to adapt and have those kind of squiggly careers.
Fascinating, thank you very much. And just to get all wonkish for a minute. First of all, I want to reflect on what you said about narrative, and that is so important. And I going back in time, I was fortunate enough, I don't know if fortunate is the word, but I was working for an MP during the expenses crisis, and he was not as bad as some, not as clean as ought. My advice to him was very clearly, you have to go on camera. You can't just put out a statement. You've got to go on camera. People have got to look into your eyes, see how seriously you're taking this, and make your explanation. And it was a bit of a job that I had to cajole him into doing quite severely. But he did in the end. You got that video statement of him sort of expressing. And it's that human element as well, those human stories that contribute to narrative. We can dispute its effectiveness as well. But it is not for nothing that Keir Starmer said, I am the son of a toolmaker, more times than any of us can remember, because, you know, the old saw is that when you're sick of hearing something, it's just about breaking through, and B, that's the start of his narrative, effective or not. But I'll stick with him for just a second, and could you very briefly cover off for us the present landscape, and perhaps bring, you know, all of you in turn, because you'll all know it, the current landscape that Dan referred to. What are the main drivers? Because I read the skills white paper on the train, you know, because reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an area of expertise of mine. We're doing some work at the moment, kind of looking at mapping policy, yeah, and understanding it. But as ever, there's kind of very much kind of a top-down drive, and there's recently been the creation of Skills England that I think is an interesting moment to think about actually what do they do, how do they engage with these kind of questions, both centrally but also locally. I think the local skills innovation plans are a really important point as well. And it feels like that's a way in which we can understand what's important for different regions as well. But I do wonder, and we're doing some work thinking about this, that it focuses very much on a place, but actually the economies and the job markets split across different places as well. So how can we start to pull out some of the things that work across those different elements too? And I think the devolution agenda, again, is really important in this one. But actually, how do you get that decision-making as close as possible to the people it's affecting? So when you see skills as kind of a devolved area, I think that's a really key thing. And building that understanding and the evidence base and the narrative plays into that and enables places to kind of push back against central government to say, this is why this is important for us, rather than just kind of following necessarily the view that may be pushed out from Whitehall as much.
I mean, and you're right, and to hold on to that point about narrative, it's all about, you know, when you talk to central government, as I've found, and I'm sure you found, it's all about also framing the opportunity for them. I think it was Paul Bristow who said at the Innovate Cambridge Summit, lobbying is about convincing government to do what you want to meet their goals.
But just to add to that, there's one point I think was also really interesting, kind of coming from an academic perspective, is thinking about evidence as well and what you collect and how you present it. So it's been fascinating to hear from young people. So how do we gather the thoughts of young people and present them in a way that doesn't take away from that richness? When we're talking to policymakers, how do we get policymakers to understand that evidence is more than just a business case and a kind of review of that information and hard data? So really expanding what we mean by impact and evidence, I think, is part of this as well.
And I think just to follow up on that point, the University of Suffolk are holding a warm data lab on the 10th of December, which I think is based around gathering data through, as we've done this morning, through stories and sharing thoughts. Dan, I just want to read you something from the Skills White Paper and get you to respond to this, because it does touch on data. Skills England will work with employers and local labour market actors to establish a data-driven national view of skills. And my first thoughts were, data-driven, very, very good. National view, must you? So, and then I'll bring in Charlotte as well. So what have you take from that, and how would you be seeking to steer that conversation?
It seems to me that the skills policy landscape is one of the more centralised in our country and kind of resistant to localisation, sort of devolving down to the local area. And so if we're going to go at something in a sort of policy system sense, getting central government to give up more of that national top-down control in this area and pass it to local areas that will know more and be closer to the issues on the ground is the right thing to do. And so that kind of national bit that you were referring to, maybe the tide's starting to turn on that stuff at the minute, so we could try and kind of encourage as much of that as possible. If government is saying it, let's say yes, agree, and get the system changed so there is more local control over those things. And then on the data point, I kind of feel that it's there, and I think the LSIP your planet is doing a lot of great work in this space. It feels like there's the thing we want to do, a bit of a kind of holy grail in this area, is just to have a better data understanding of what are the skills that employers need and want now, what are the skills employers are going to need and want in a few years' time, and then how do people who are training young people understand what those skills are. That's the holy grail that we're all trying to achieve. Data's pretty key to all of that. So this is a place with lots of organisations that are producing data, that have employers who are contributing to this. This is a place where you probably have a good shot at getting a good understanding of that data to inform a system that there's more control of locally.
So Charlotte, I mean, you're obviously, you head a membership body that has members all across the county. You mentioned Peterborough earlier, obviously Ely, and all places in between. And obviously the needs of those and the needs of those businesses in central Cambridge will be different. So how do you deal with that juxtaposition and what are you putting forward your members' requirements?
Yeah. Well, I think firstly what's really important is whilst our members are absolutely the nucleus of everything that we do, we represent every size and sector of organisation across wider Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So actually, when we're taking our survey data, it is from the whole business community. And right now we're seeing some really concerning stats. So I'm very much focused on the budget next week because I think that is a fiscal policy moment where we can have impact. And we've been really clear, business cannot take any more tax, it cannot take any more burden, and we're unapologetic about that. 12 months ago, you'd have seen we were saying the same thing, that actually there's always those unintended consequences. And then if we marry up, of course, so this year we've seen increases to employers' national insurance contributions, we've seen increases to national living wage. Employers are morally all for that, but naturally it then puts the price of everything up for everybody else, and the circle goes round, we sort of spiral. But then we're going to compound that with, again, the Employment Rights Bill, which has got some good work in there and morally lots of things that we would agree with, but ultimately it will have unintended consequences that employers will be more risk averse, they will be rowing back on recruiting, and already our vacancies that we measure every quarter, we measure all sorts in the labour market, and our vacancies here in the region are lower than what they are across the 10-year average, but they're also lower than our pre-pandemic levels. So actually we're seeing this great work that we've been inspiring people to think about amazing routes like apprenticeships, and we've got the next generation wanting those opportunities, but sadly we've not got the vacancies there available. So we've got to support government to understand how we need to support businesses to grow, who then open up those opportunities. I think it's also really important that we reflect on what kinds of roles we've got here in Cambridge in particular. So software, programming, of course, very much in demand, but actually in the top 5 jobs, administrators, sales, so communication skills, really, really key, and also domestic cleaners, all really important roles. No job is too small, and we've got to make sure that we recognise that, whether it's a PhD level role in this organisation, or if you're making sure that that lab can operate, they're both absolutely equal.
And you're absolutely right. And I think one of the things that I try very hard to do, and I know everyone here does as well, that people like all of you can only do what you do. And I know this is true for Kevin as well, and probably lots of other people in the room. Do what you do if you've got people working as part of your team to make the diary work. I quite obviously don't, as Dan knows, have anyone to do my diary, and chaos inevitably ensues. So those
everyone has, it's the old saying, the teamwork makes the dream work. It's so old I can't actually say it. So because of time, and I don't want to hold anyone back from lunch, I'm going to sort of speed us along a bit, unless anyone... Gareth, I thought I was just kind of going to come if you've got an observation.
Yeah, well, I'd quite like to comment on the post-16 educational skills white paper, because actually I'd read it 3 times by the end of that day, and I've been gagging for somebody to ask me about it.
Hang on a minute. This is not Gareth. Apropos of nothing much, could you tell us, please, about the post? I'm thinking about the post-16 skills white paper. What do you make of it?
Well, I'd love to, but I'd actually like to go via your very first reflection from this morning and through something that Dan said, because you were talking to start with about some of us older workers griping about young people, and the thing we have to accept is we're now in a multi-generational workplace with, I think, 5 generations now working together in the workplace, and fair enough, we all come with different expectations. I thought what was said earlier about the challenges of the pandemic and the lockdowns for young people, very, very powerful. But then, for us older workers, we've got all these digital technologies, artificial intelligence, and I think some of these technologies are kind of inverting the normal experiential learning model. Yeah. In tax, say, if you've been in tax for 20 years, you're going to know more tax than a new trainee. I think with things like AI, that's not true at all. I think it's almost the other way around. So, and the government has a real focus, and this will come out in the white paper, a real focus on young people, real focus on entry-level roles, real focus on the NEET 16 to 24. And whilst I totally appreciate the importance of those, what about mature workers? We were hearing in the last panel about, if you have a career break, you get left behind. I think people who are in work feel like they're getting left behind. Dan was talking about the complexity of the local skills system. You can imagine I see that repeated all around the country. And for a national provider or a national employer, that's hideously complicated. And then you've got the kind of industrial strategy at national level. You've got Skills England setting national priorities. Are those priorities the same at local level? So, we had British Sugar talking at an event earlier this week. Now, agribusiness is not recognised as a priority in the national industrial strategy, but it is a priority in the local growth plan, the local skills improvement plan for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. But actually, they've got a factory in the East Midlands and Newark where agribusiness isn't a priority. So you can imagine for British Sugar, that's horribly complicated to try and tie together national and sort of local. The white paper, though, coming back to this, it's supposed to cover education and skills, and it was co-signed by the Department for Education and the Department for Work and Pensions, who now have taken over skills and apprenticeship. But it was clearly a far more education-focused document than it was skills. There was very little on the growth and skills offer, for instance, whether we're still waiting for more in the budget before they can give us some kind of clarity on that. There was a big focus also on FE colleges, which you can imagine as somebody in the independent training provider sector. Independent providers offer 70% of apprenticeships in the country, for instance. So to see that focus on FE colleges is a bit concerning, and one of the big messages we've already mentioned that did come out is around partnership and collaboration, which I think this sort of conversation is so important.
Fantastic, thank you very much. I'm just going to have a very short couple of questions. Anybody got a question or an observation they'd like to make? Well, that makes it... Oh, Kevin. I was going to say, that makes things really simple. But there you go. Kevin, please.
Just a quick question. On the, you're talking about the level of vacancies being down. I was speaking to an employer just this week who he's not advertising for people because he says he can't find the workers, and therefore he's turning down really big contracts. So he's convinced that there aren't the skilled people in the region, and he's turning down contracts. So there's less vacancies in Great Yarmouth at the moment because he's got such little confidence in being able to find the people. That's a horrible chicken and egg situation. How the hell do we get out of that? I say we just train more people, and if we had an overburden, if we had too many skilled people in the region, I think that would bring business in. And I think that's where we're letting this whole system down, is we're just not training enough people well enough. Let's get a plethora of people. If we have 100 too many welders in the region, guess what? They can go and work in Bedford at the new theme park that's going to be built there. So let's just train some more people and put that investment in people rather than paying them not to work.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think, I'd add on to that. The government's absolute focus and priority is on economic growth. And in fact, I think the fiscal challenges they face, this black hole, whether it's 30 billion, 50 billion, 80 billion, I've heard all sorts of figures about the black hole and the impact that's going to have on the budget we're going to hear. But fundamentally, that black hole is because we haven't had fast enough growth. The growth over the last 10 or 20 years has been a fraction of what it was for decades prior to that. That's affecting tax receipts, it's affecting government spending on things like benefits, it's particularly affecting the cost of government debt. That is absolutely spiralling, as we're all hearing at the moment. That growth, the biggest thing I hear from the employers I work with holding back growth is access to skills, access to talent, access to people. So what I'm certainly hoping to hear in the budget is support for things like apprenticeships that are so important.
And so I want to come and just get very, very fast final thought. But one thing I want to ask you to do first is, we're all on a train going to London to see ministers. What's your very first pitch, your very quick elevator, even shorter than an elevator, rocket pack pitch?
Okay, I'll come back quickly on that point earlier. So vacancies are really low, but 94% of employers are struggling to recruit. So we have got a pickle. It's not even a dichotomy, it is a pickle. What would I be asking for right now? My quick ask would be make sure that money that's going into the levy pot is coming into our region, that it's not going into Treasury, that it goes into skills, because that's what it's meant for.
I'd love to see the evidence that whoa! I'd love to see the evidence that national government is spending it better, or would spend it better. Dan, what's your very quick pitch?
Same thing, but it's the same thing I said. Cambridge grows, the country benefits.
Yes,
so support Cambridge to grow through letting it keep more of its proceeds of growth. I want to say something very quickly on that question as well. We talk about kind of data and trying to understand where skills are going. I don't think it takes a lot of thought to realise that the amount of stuff being built across the east of England over the coming decades is going to be a huge, huge skills need, from nuclear power plants to railways to reservoirs to theme parks. There is going to be a massive need for skills in this region over coming decades. That is something the whole system should be thinking about now, because it's a massive opportunity.
Fantastic, thank you, Dan. Owen.
I would be trying to persuade the Minister and saying, why aren't you getting on the train to Cambridge, to Norwich, to Ipswich, to Peterborough, to Great Yarmouth to see what's going on here, rather than us having to come and see you in London?
I'll tag them in the comments. Gareth.
Charlotte actually stole my point around making sure that apprenticeships are adequately funded through the levy. So the one I would bring, which is relevant to skills, but I think it's relevant across the whole of government policy, is that certainty, clarity and consistency is what's going to give confidence for people to recruit, to train, to invest, to expand. The problem we have at the moment is just too much uncertainty. There's so much change and nobody knows where it's all going to land, so we need that certainty.
Fantastic. Well, the conversation can sort of continue on the series we're doing in the new year around Beginner's Guide to Cambridge, Beginner's Guide to Norwich, Beginner's Guide to Ipswich, Beginner's Guide to Peterborough. It doesn't need to end in those places, and they're going to be looking at how new entrants in various sectors actually make their presence felt. What do they do? Where do they go? To whom do they speak? What organisations should they join? Cambridgeshire Chamber of Commerce, Federation of Small Business, in case Candy's listening, and I don't want to get beaten up. And this, as I say, I judge what goes on the Eastern Promise podcast, and this conversation can go wherever we need it to go. And I will always throw my shoulder in behind any effort to get the East of England growing in the way the East of England wants to grow. It's not one homogenous thing. It's lots of different wonderful places, and that is its strength. We are not one thing, we are many. And that is what's wonderful about it, and that's why I love it so much. Can you just thank my final panel? They had to wait a long time, but they've been wonderful. Everything I'd hoped for and more. Thank you. You've been absolutely fantastic. What a wonderful audience. Thank you for contributing. Thank you to these young people still here down the front, and who've really made this such a special event. Thank you to my engineer over the back, although he won't like me saying so. Thank you. And go and get some lunch. You've earned it. Thank you, everyone.
Of course, even though this is a pretty long podcast, even by my standards, there's still much to be discussed. How do we create that new narrative and make it inclusive without diluting it so much it loses all meaning? Do we need to focus locally? Can a regional focus be taken into account? And what do we even mean by regional? That very phrase has different meanings in Norfolk and Suffolk and Cambridgeshire. The discussion will no doubt continue on LinkedIn, where you can DM me or email me at podcast@easternpromise.org.uk. And be sure to mark your subject line, if you can, skills event. My thanks to all our panellists for being so open and willing to share their stories. To East Norfolk Sixth Form College and North Cambridge Academy for sending us some of their best and brightest. To everyone listening in the audience, and of course, to you for listening. Thank you. Next week, I'll be bringing you the originally promised episode of Eastern Promise looking at AI and music and how they can combine to aid in the fight against dementia. I'll also be sharing the festive cheer and bringing you the Christmas Appeal Open Mic Extravaganza. I'll be welcoming Norfolk's cancer charity, the Big C, the Cambridge Acorn Project, the MedCan Foundation, and the Abbey People, to name but four. More charities are signed up to record next week. So, deck the halls with boughs of holly as we prepare our most festive and final episode of 2025. Don't forget, 2026 will be our 5th anniversary year. Join us in 7 short days for that. Well, probably 7 short days. But until then, bye for now. To hear other episodes of the Eastern Promise podcast and to find out more about what we do, go to our website at easternpromise.org.uk. Eastern Promise is a Pudding Shed production in proud association with Mills and Reeve. Achieving more together.